We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Red Path. It's Dara and Brian here with you today on what kind of feels a little bit like Christmas Day for everyone here playing Warhammer 40,000. We just got a massive balance data slate. It's absolutely colossal. The amount of rules changes in here is super significant for a little bit for the world leaders. We didn't get too many actual rules changes ourselves, but the actual game has changed an awful lot. A lot of people are calling this 10.5 edition. I think it's maybe not so far from the truth. There's a whole lot to talk about here today. We're going to be here for a while. Myself and Brian, we're going to hang out. We're going to talk about the slate, give our first reactions. We're going to go through the core rule changes. We're obviously going to be touching on world eaters. And yeah, it's going to be a really good time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us as well. If you have questions, we'll get to as many as we can during the stream. Super chats will obviously have priority as usual. So if you want your question answered urgently, do super chat it in. Helps to support the channel and all that good stuff. But yeah, Brian, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. This is definitely a spicy meatball of a data slate. Like Dara said, if you're initially looking at this as a World Leader fan and you're seeing pretty much nothing changing in our points, which really nothing really did. 8-bound got helped out a little bit, but your list will probably drop 20 to 30 points depending on how 8-bound crazed you are. That doesn't seem like much, but the bigger implications of the meta, I think, are going to shift drastically. World leaders are in a very good spot. We're definitely one of those armies benefiting from the everybody above us collapsed and now we get to rise up. That's my initial take so far. A lot of our big predators are gone, or not gone, but definitely knocked down a peg. Um, I'm really excited. A lot of the lists that I was building beforehand, and I was off by like 5 or 10 points, are now viable. So the previous data slate, I feel, put us in like a really awkward position with points, specifically for a lot more of the mainstream list building. I feel like that awkwardness is gone. Um, we were all off by like 5, 10 points. We weren't really sure what to add. Now we don't have to have the argument of Mauler Fiend versus Exalted 8-bound anymore. Now, if you just want to run your Exalted 8-bound, you can. Because you got that 15 points back, so you can kind of compare them for that last little
Yeah.
slot in your list, which is nice. Nice having choice. No one likes getting forced to run certain things. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I have a GT running this packet in 2 weeks. People are already setting the TO on fire, but I think everything's going to be fine. Just got to get a little innovative. I think it's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be wild. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think world leaders are in an incredibly good position for this upcoming meta. A lot of our big predators got like knocked down a peg or six. T Suns, pour one out for the homies. Deckard also pretty shafted. Orcs pretty hammered as well. I think, obviously some armies have come up, and it's going to be very hard to see how good some armies are going to be, especially like ADMEC and nids, until we kind of see how the innovators in those factions like start to adapt and work with these new changes, because they're obviously quite significant changes for those armies. But seeing the nerfs to Green Tide, seeing the nerfs to Bully Boys, like obviously brought a massive smile to my face. Those armies were really oppressive, especially for us. And then seeing the likes of Indirect get really hit hard, great, super good. And T Son's losing maybe a little bit of that jank, especially jank that could really hurt us, was obviously also very good. So yeah, why don't we kick into the actual balance status slate? We're gonna go through this from a top down view. We're gonna work through the factions and kind of talk about like what we think about these changes. We're not going to spend maybe particularly long on everything. We're just going to try and talk about the main points here. Obviously, there's so much to get through in this stream today. But if you want to chime in and chat and let us know what you're thinking about various different things too, or if you play any other armies and you're kind of like hyper disappointed about their changes, feel free to chime in as well. But Brian, why don't you bring the balance data slate up for us here?
All right, here we go. Is it up for you, Dora?
Sure is. Sure is.
Sweet. So core rules had a significant amount of changes. We're kind of going to walk through them. There may be some rules that we don't catch that were in the commentary. We're still going to talk about the commentary briefly, but there are so many small things that are just going to have to get addressed over the next couple weeks that will come up. So keep an eye out for more content on that. But for now, we're going to kind of read what we have in front of us. Um, So starting off with the core rules, one of the biggest changes we have is modifying a stratagem CP cost. So previously, your captains or whatever source of free strat you had used to be open to any strat, and then they changed it to only battle tactic, and now they've opened it back up to any strat. The condition being that it now just decreases the cost of that stratagem by 1 CP, which previously, I think the biggest offender was Custodes on day 1, when they just had a 2 CP like fights first, and it was a battle tactic, or it wasn't a battle tactic, but they could just spam it 3 times across
Yeah,
the whole
that
army, and
was
that was
rough.
really frustrating to deal with. That was
Yeah,
awful, but that doesn't exist anymore, and a lot of those more problematic stratagems are still 2 CP. They're coming down to 1. So that's a huge change.
yeah,
And also its cousin that goes with it, your Vex, anything that would increase your CP costs. I think pretty much across the board, Dara, all vectors are now just this 12-inch AoE of everything costs 1 CP, which is like a side grade.
yeah.
Because
It,
now,
it seems that way.
'cause
I think that's how it works, basically. Yeah, I think you can like
'cause you're,
stack it. So I think 3 Archons can like dump on one stratagem if they're on the
uh,
board and just be like, "Hey,
oh yeah, because the auras, it depends. Because the auras got, no, 3 Archons don't. Because auras don't stack. They have to have separate names, I think,
right,
still.
okay, yeah,
Some armies have multiple Vex, so maybe they have different names. Maybe that can stack. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
yeah."
know actually. Is there more than one Vex in armies that have Vex? I'm not sure.
Maybe some weird
The cool th
Imperium like allying with a assassin and having it in another place. I don't know, but it's gonna be a fringe case anyway. Um,
it's
but
kind
yeah,
of weird application because your typical vecting units are just hanging out in the back doing something. That's your Khaled's assassin. That was your Cypher. That was your Kairos, right? That's stuff you don't really want to be committing. They're going to lose a lot of value from
yes.
this aspect. I mean, the Khaled's is still going to see a ton of play, jumping around the board.
But they
It's
gotta
pretty
like
good.
most things are gonna have to get up close and personal. Like Kairos kind of springs to mind as a guy who now just has to kind of close the gap a little bit more.
Or like
Um,
Bjorn from Space Wolves. Like your
yeah,
high toughness guys just gained a lot more value for being wanting to be in the middle of the board. You're not vecting anything turn 1, probably turn 2 if your opponent doesn't want you to. Or I guess you're not even vecting it anymore. It's just an AoE tax, which is nice, but it's not going to be like this global interaction, which was really annoying getting vected by a Khaled's assassin 50 inches away.
yeah, yeah. It means you can actually pick your stratagems in interesting ways where you're like, I know this can't be vected, so I'm going to do it here. It introduces some play around the mechanic anyway, which I think is probably a good thing. But yeah, I'm a fan of it.
Okay. How about stratagems that can be used more than once per phase slash
This is
turn?
quite a spicy one here. Basically, unless it specifically says that like calls out a stratagem by name, you can't double up on them anymore. So the way it reads, parts of a rule that allow a player to use a stratagem, even if they've already targeted another unit with that stratagem in the phase, can only do that if the name of the stratagem is specified on the rule. For example, Battle Lust for World Leaders. Um, Similarly, if a stratagem is limited to one use per player per turn, Fire Overwatch, for example, such parts of that rule can only be used if the stratagem is specified in that rule. So I think Trader Guardsmen have Fire Overwatch. So that's like quite a big change, in my opinion, because a lot of the more generic iterations of this ability are basically just like, oh yeah, you can double up on a strat. So I think like Custodes had a lot of it, Space Marines had a lot of it. Basically, what this means now is you can only double up on specific strats that the ability calls out. So, like for example, as I said, Battle Lust for us means we can double up on Heroic if we do that, which is pretty good. We might want to be doing Heroic a lot more now. Um, but yeah, what do you think about this one, Brian?
I think it's a nice thing to clarify too, because I know there's a lot of hot debate earlier on about the whole Overwatch thing. Like AdMech trying to Overwatch you 5 times in one phase was kind of annoying.
Yeah,
Granted, we don't have to worry about AdMech trying to do that right now. Well, maybe we do. We don't know. That's a different entire like
yeah,
subject. Um, I'm a fan of the change broadly.
yeah. It's good. And then strats that prevent units from being targeted. So you're kind of like
Uh,
lone operative activating stratagems, basically all increase from 12 inches to 18 inches is big change there. Not super relevant for world leaders because we don't really do a whole bunch of shooting, but I guess it's nice that it's uniform across the board now, right?
yep. It was more of a clarification. I think that was already a bunch of smaller data slate changes, and I think they just condensed it into one.
Yeah,
So this is a big one.
this is huge.
It's very small amount of text, but a very big implications. I have a buddy that has 200 Death Core of Krieg, and the entire list is about using like the little, I think Hades assault drills or whatever the pop back up. The 20 guys die and they pop back up and spawn anywhere on the board. Basically, if you have anything that lets you rebuy a dead unit, you can only do it once per game. That's a huge nerf to your swarm lists. I've been on the receiving end of an endless swarm list that did nothing but rebuy 20 gargoyles 5 turns in a row, and that was the only game plan that army had. Now they can only do it once, so
It's huge.
it's huge.
It's such a massive nerf to guard, and I'm so here for it. I love to see things like that happening to armies that frustrate me to play against, and getting like 500 points for free doesn't feel great when you're the opponent. So yeah, I think that being nerfed is really big. Obviously, it kind of guts Endless Swarm, which is, I suppose, a little bit frustrating, but turn it's got a lot of compensatory
Uh,
buffs.
Endless
Um,
Swarm needed that to be doing that at
mhm.
all 5 turns to really kind of work. So
Yeah, and obviously it's a huge change for Guard as well, the other kind of prime users of the reinforcement stratagem. I, for one, am very glad that I won't have to deal with Endless Pony Hell anymore. That's pretty good. They'll have to be a lot more careful when they want to use that stratagem now, because typically they were using it, you know, 2 to 4 times per game, whereas now they're going to be just getting that one extra unit back. So whatever they choose, it's going to have to be a very valuable unit. Yeah, huge fan of that change. Really, really like it. I think there is an awkward interaction that I did see with GSC where in the Brood Brothers attachment, there is a reinforcement stratagem which goes off on a 3+, but that means that you might use that stratagem. It does not go off, and then
and
you
it
can't
doesn't
do it
work,
again
and then you
because
don't.
you still use the stratagem.
I
That
feel like that should be reworded to be if it successfully
probably
goes
should,
off.
yeah, probably should be reworded to just being like, just give them back the squad. I don't think it's going to be that crippling, you know.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so great to see that being taken out. Okay, so we're going to move on to the factions now. So I'm going to be straight up. Some of these factions, like, I'm not going to talk about ADMEC. I have no idea what happened with ADMEC. It's like
Yeah,
crazy. Like a
if you
million
look
things
around all
changed.
these ADMEC data sheets, you see red, which means it changed. I don't know what it was before. I have no frame
Yeah,
of reference for their points.
yeah.
The points went up a certain amount. I still think ADMEC players are probably, I'm going to go ahead and assume, happy with these changes.
From the ones that
They
I've
got
talked to, the answer is yes. They are very, very happy. There's a lot of like damage increases here, which is good. There's a lot of kind of lethality increases. Some of the melee aspect of AdMech also went up. And basically all the units that didn't have the correct keywords to interact with the army rules gain those keywords. So
which is
great.
really nice. But
Cole
I
can
have
also go through walls now, which is fun.
I have no frame of reference for what this army did before, and I will not pretend like I will know what they do now.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's
that's kind
fair.
of my mentality with that.
One thing
All
we
right,
are intimately familiar with is the Custodes, though, who got some significant buffs here.
which I
So
want to reference one thing before we get too far into their abilities. That stratagem change they had above is huge for them because their character's matters detachment has no battle tactics.
yeah,
So now they can run 3 shield captains and actually have a detachment that works,
yeah,
which is nice.
cool for them. So Shield Host got changed. Basically, Shield Host was like a lot of people were calling it the Golden Wog, which was kind of like once per game they get to throw up these 2 abilities and like power up for the turn. How it works now is you can pick one of those abilities to be active in every single turn. So that's a very, very powerful increase in lethality for a detachment that was already quite lethal. So I think that alone is a massive change for Custodes. It makes them like, a lot more scary on the table. Once again, you could have lethal fives from turn one or crit fives even. Or I think the other one is like an extra AP boost, which is also very good. So that's very strong. And then the Orc Champions has also changed to basically be at the start of your command phase, you pick one unit from your opponent's army until the end of your next command phase. Each time model in a Adeptus Custodes character unit, no longer model, makes an attack, add 1 to the wound roll. So basically, their detachment ability now changes to character units instead of character models, which again ups the lethality an awful lot because guess what? Pretty much every single Custodes unit is going to be a character unit. So, what do you
And
think about these changes, Brian?
Custodes, I think, have hard pivoted from what their index was. Their index was almost hyper defensive. Now they're just doubling down on the offense. Anything Custodes touches dies is what I've learned. So it doesn't even matter. Like I have charged Alaris Custodian bricks, killed like 4, left 2. There were 2 remaining, and those 2 still pick up my entire squad. So
Yeah, I think like
it's just
obviously them being more lethal is like, I don't know if it's like necessarily the scariest thing for us. The main thing in my mind is that they didn't gain too much durability, which is where the World Eaters really struggle with punching into them. So I think it's still probably a favored matchup for the World Eaters, right?
yeah. I feel like barring a few interactions, which will still be fine in holding up -1 damage is still very valuable for protecting Exalted 8-bound, but like if a Custody unit touched a Berserker unit or a small 8-bound unit, that unit was dead,
Yeah.
regardless of
Yeah.
what happened. Now it's super dead. I don't think that changes the dynamics of how we play too much. I think we have the mobility advantage on them still, and they do not have the durability advantage that they used to have.
Yep.
So we can still fight the game on our terms, but if you misplay, you will get your cheek spread. So be careful.
Yep. Still got to be careful. All right, let's move it on. What we got up next? We have Eldari, which
Eldari, I don't
they
think
didn't get
they
any
had
changes here. They got point
changes.
changes basically, which is fine.
Um,
So we can.
Agents of the Imperium, nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Astra Militarum got quite a bit of changes here. So main one here is the combined regiment detachment change. So that is now each time a model in a regiment unit from your army makes a range attack that targets a visible unit, excluding monsters or vehicles, the attack has lethal hits. So that will now only apply to regiment units, and then each time a model in a squadron unit from your army makes a range attack that does target a monster or vehicle, the attack has lethal hits. So basically, your vehicles are, the way I read this is your vehicles are good on enemy monsters and vehicles, and your infantry is fine, basically. It means they don't have to stand stationary for their rule anymore, which is, obviously beneficial for them. But losing the reinforcements, and then as we're going to talk to later on, indirect being changed to what it's been changed to, where you can only hit on 4s. Pretty big gut punch for the Imperial Guard, I would say. What are you thinking about this one?
It's nice that they have a detachment rule that works. I feel like, yes, if you're a guard player, you're probably going to be a little unhappy with the overall changes. But I feel like this combined regiment detachment rule really opens the sandbox for them a little bit more, because they used to their detachment rule used to say indirect matters, nothing else does. Now they've opened it up to everything else can matter. I just don't think it matters enough because I think they're not pointed appropriately and they've been punished for the sins of indirect for too long. And I don't think they got those shackles lifted off just yet.
Yeah, I think Guard are going to potentially struggle in this upcoming meta, and I think we have a very good game into Guard now.
Yes.
Templars, they
I don't think
got the extra transport capacity, which is fine. It's not here, but crucially, Templars, in like Gladius and other detachments like Ironstorm, they can now only take Templar vehicles in those detachments. So you can't have like a Black Templar's Gladiator, whatever, and then a regular version of that Gladiator. It's a fringe case, but I just think it's funny. And obviously, then there was a whole bunch of point changes for them as well. Blood Angels haven't changed. So CK and Imperial Knights as well got a fucking spicy ass change here. So how these guys work now is the super heavy walker ability, which is the big knights. Whenever they make a normal move, advance, or fall back, they can move through models, excluding Titanic, same as before, and terrain features that are 4 inches or less in height. When doing so, they can move within engagement range of enemy models, so that's the same as before, can't end with engagement range of them. They can also move through sections of terrain features that are more than 4 inches in height, but after they move, they have to roll a d6, and on a 1, they're battle shocked. So I'm like, you know what? Knights moving through walls, awesome. But what I find really funny here is the writer they have at the end, where they're just like, of all the things that we wanted to simulate in the entire 41st millennium, you've got a whole sandbox of like imagination to play with. But the thing that they decided was they were like, you know what? It's when that knight comes through the wall, we want to make sure that there's a rule for like the steel beam that falls on his head and confuses him for the rest of the battle round. And
yeah, he trips on the way through the wall.
like, there's going to be some times where you've got like a knight lining up a charge and he's going to like,
And you
fail
need
that
area
charge and he's
denial
battle shocked and now he can't do
or
it or
just
something, or like
or you
fail
need
it.
storm hostile objective and now you just don't because you tripped over a steel beam.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This rule is baller. Like, it's so cool for knights that they can walk through walls now. I'm so happy for them. Like, that's a really really good change. And with the point changes to the big knights, I actually think, you know what, this is freaking sick. But really, did we need that battle shock raider in there? I just don't know if that needed. Like, what do you think, Brian?
It just seems oddly specific, and when it does, it'll be incredibly funny. That seems like a rule that's going to be forgotten about, so make sure you're
But
keeping your
remember
knight
it,
player
because
friends
if it does
honest.
happen, it's like super relevant. Like, it's like just casually OC0, battle shocks, I can't stratagem, can't do actions, etc. etc. Okay, Chaos Space Marines. One
This is
data sheet change here, which is, I
a
guess
big
it's
one.
pretty big. Yeah. So
Uh,
Warp Talons now have to kill the unit that they fight if they want to disappear. That's the change, right?
this unit has destroyed one or more enemy units, correct? So there's no more tag teaming with two Warp Talons. Now one will be stuck, I think.
Yeah.
At the end of the fight phase, if this unit destroyed, yeah. So the Warp Talons have to that squad has to be responsible for the kill. So you can't really tag team with two squads unless you start with the other squad and then use the Warp Talons to pick them up. Um, this does work if you kill the unit, but the character still there was a character attached that's no longer attached. You can run away. But there was a lot of shenanigans that Warp Talons are up to around being eligible to fight and no longer eligible to fight. Like you could have pulled
Yeah.
out of combat and then flown away. That's probably a necessary change. That
Yeah,
Warp
I mean,
Talon
like, let's
ability
be
was
real. They
strong as
they,
hell.
they were really
It's
disgusting. Yeah.
they're still disgusting.
Oh yeah,
Which we can
like,
get to.
let's be real. Don also says he
But
wishes that the change to Titanic applied to all Titanic units. Dude, same. Chaos drifting through walls. Like, give it to me. That would be awesome.
he still has to fit through the wall. That was always the problem.
Correct. Yes. All right, let's move on. We've got demons. Okay,
This is a
demons
spicy one.
are eating very, very good. So basically, the long and short of it is that demons got Bellacor's aura of Shadow of Chaos within 6 for all the greater demons for their specific demon like units. So, Bloodthirsters, Great and Clean ones, etc., etc. They can now spawn in demons within 6 of them and project Shadow of Chaos, meaning that they can do all the stratagems that also require them to have Shadow of Chaos presence. Pretty huge, I think it's fair to say.
I got very excited when reading that because I thought I could do World Eater shenanigans and bring a Bloodthirster with Bloodletters, but that still doesn't work, so don't try it, guys.
Yeah.
It'll just look silly and people will make fun of you and rules when you're talking about rules. Yeah, that's huge. That makes 6-inch deep striking a lot more consistent and rewarding you for playing Mono God a little bit. Like, obviously, Bellacor's still an auto take because the you can't shoot me turn 1 is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But being able to just surprise and drop pretty much 6 inches everywhere. If you're taking like 3 Bloodthirsters and 60 Bloodletters and some Blood Crushers, you're doing whatever you want, wherever you want, and nobody can tell you otherwise.
Yep.
Which is really nice. I like the encouragement that they're putting towards forcing greater demon synergy with other non-greater demon stuff, but I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you can still use Scarbrand to spawn Bloodthirsters in people's face, which is funny.
I mean, what strikes me as good here is using like Bloodthirsters or Scarbrand to spawn Blood Crushers. That seems
Oh yeah, now they have
real
+1 to
nice.
hit right in front of you.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of that. And with the points
Yep.
changes for demons as well, I'm just like, I'm happy for the homies.
Yep, and I don't think really any other changes were made to them.
It's kind of just,
And this is
giving
just
the unit abilities to all those guys.
and this is
It's
just
giving,
clarifying,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Dark
Dark
Angels,
Angels.
they got some stuff, which, again, this is kind of like ADME and stuff. I'm not really sure about this one. So they got extra OC for Grim Resolve, which is kind of like whatever. And then Inner Circle, which is the Terminator detachment, I want to say. At the start of your movement phase, select one of the following. You basically pick an objective marker you control. That becomes your vowed objective marker. I have no idea.
Does that mean they get
means.
2 vowed? I think that means they get 2 vowed objective markers.
Okay.
But you have to control it at the start of your movement phase. So that's like, I think the other one is you get to vow anything.
Right.
But this one is you can only vow one you control. So it's like if you see somebody's coming up to charge you, you can be vowed on it.
Right. And then
Like
elsewhere, the knights got damage buffs in a big way. The mace is going to AP2, gaining anti-monster and anti-vehicle, and then the power weapon going up to damage 2 attack. It's pretty hefty. I do think they went up in points as well, though, to kind of like compensate for that. But I guess I don't know. It makes Deathwing Knights more killy, which I guess is fine because you could only bring them in units of 5, so you kind of want them to be killy, right?
Yeah. From what I'm seeing, like it looks like they gave a lot of the unplayed Dark Angels units more love, which they needed because I'm tired of
Yeah.
seeing Dark Angels Ironstorm. That is the most boring list I've ever seen or
Dante
played
the Lion
against.
turns into Kool-Aid Man. Yes, that is a truth. He can now go through walls.
Yep, Angron cannot because
Yeah, Angron can because he's not Imperium.
I
I
would
guess you
argue that
turn to
Angron
Chaos and
can.
you forget the ability to T-pose through a wall.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like Angron has more reason to be able to go through walls than uh, regular Kool-Aid Man Lion
You
L.
know,
Johnson,
I
but
guess
whatever.
the chances of the Lion being able to use a door is probably higher than Angron, but let's not get too deep
Angron
into
makes his
it.
own door.
Angron makes his own door,
That's my
but we
point.
all know that if Angron could just like ignore ruins, that would be the most busted thing in the game. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
sure. Just measure straight line. Like a true World Leader player, just measure in straight lines.
yes,
Um,
yes, indeed. Measuring in
which
straight lines also a hot topic for the core rule changes, but we'll get there.
because
Um,
measuring is too hard, apparently.
yes, deck
It was too hard
guard.
for me.
Listen,
I
it's too hard for any
don't
World
think any
Leaders player. Deck guard got
no
the grenade
detachment
dude changed. Yeah,
changes,
yeah,
but yep. So as we kind of mentioned above, with the Putrefier, he could do grenades for free. So
yep. Cool.
Death Watch,
Um,
I
we're gonna
could
skip
not
that
be
watch
bothered. I don't
because
think
they're
if
gonna
anything,
be in a
God, there's
different
so
codex
much
in like a
text.
couple of months. Drakari didn't change at
Drakari,
all.
Gene
And
Stealers,
neither did
nope.
GSC. I think GSC, like having looked at the points for GSC, feel
It's pretty
bad for
bad.
the homies. Yeah, I'm just
Was
like, man, you know, that's just tough going.
I,
Um,
I would go as far to say as I think GSC might be one of the worst armies in the game right now. Like
I don't
fighting
think
for
I
last
don't.
place.
Yeah, probably.
They lost all their special weapons. They got box locked. Their
Yeah,
lethality dropped. Their points went up, and their detachment entire got like a side grade, but kind of like a side downgrade.
it's just rough. I'm sure there's going to be play in there. I don't think they're boring, which is like, if you're a bad army but you're not boring, it's at least fun. So I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. Um, Grey Knights, the main balance data sheet change here was that the Vortex of Doom now has to pay attention to Lone Up, but apart from that, it's still going to mess you up real good.
And
And
they did that with all of the brain bolts. If I'm
yes, Doom Bolts was the same.
yeah, any of your like psychic like laser beams, I
Yeah,
think got to have to obey Lone Op now.
yeah. Cool. That's them.
This is all the
Nemesis stuff is all the same as before.
same.
They obviously got point
Imperial
changes.
Knights.
Is
Imperial
the same.
Knights is the same
They can
thing.
go through walls now as well, which is actually probably pretty good for them. Canis flying through a wall into my face is like, oh, good God in heaven. This is about to be pretty bad.
Votan,
I don't think they got
although I
any
think it's
changes.
annoying they haven't changed. I really hate this pick 4 units pinata rule. It
Yeah.
should be less with a better reward or something. It's just as a World Eaters player, having your entire army start with the
Main
uh-oh token on
Votan
them
thing
is
is
pretty bad.
those little infiltrator dudes are 80 points, which is way too fucking cheap for a unit that can infiltrate, and it's gonna ruin World Leaders days now.
We'll get there. You can rant about Votan when we get to the
Dude,
points.
you're gonna see my head go fucking beetroot. Okay, Necrons, no change.
Necrons, no
All right,
change. Okay,
Orcs. This
spicy
is
one. I'll let you take this one because
yes.
you
Let me
also have
fucking
a
relish
vitriol
in this
hatred.
moment. So the only army that I hate almost as much as Votan is Orcs. I deeply. I actually, while I hate Votan passionately, I've hated Orcs consistently for many editions. I hate the army. It's a dumb army. It shouldn't exist in the game, but it does. And whenever it does, I get gaslit by Orc players who are like, "You're having fun when you're playing against me," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." And then they scream "Wog," and they're like, "Isn't this so much fun?" And I'm like, "Nope, no, it's not." That's not true. I do have a really good time playing against Orc players. Like they actually tend to be really fun games. But I just don't like Orcs as a faction. And I really hated the rules that they got in their codex because they were seriously oppressive. And they've been nerfed a lot, which makes me very, very happy. I'm actually probably more happy about this than if World Leaders had gotten buffs. This is what I would rather have seen. So, let's start with Green Tide. that felt really good to get that out of my system. So Green Tide doesn't give you a 5-up invuln anymore. It gives you a 6-up, and it doesn't let you reroll ones to wound or reroll ones on saving throws. If you've got more than 10 boys, if you've got more than
Oh,
10, it boosts you to a 5-up now.
they got rid of the reroll
No
ones.
more reroll ones. The benefit is that you go to a 5-up. So most of the time, they are probably going to have a 5-up invuln. Um, what's going to get kind of funny is like you're going to have to sort of like, I guess, sequence it where it's like once they drop down to that 10-man mark in the middle of an attack activation, are you going to have to switch it to a 6-up? I don't know. I think so.
Probably not, because I think it's snapshots.
Yeah, actually, it's each time an attack
Each time an
targets a
attack
unit of
targets,
boys.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
snapshot it. So no,
Okay.
no tricky stuff with that.
But
But
no
still,
more. Yeah,
sequencing still gonna matter for if you're like putting 2 units into them.
of course, yeah. So going to a 6-up invuln for the last 10 guys is obviously like semi-relevant, but like not having the reroll ones on the saving throws functionally puts them from close to a 4-up invuln to a 5-up invuln, which is good. The stratagems for this also changed a little bit, so they don't get like the like massive charge bonus, stacking up again, and also the is that the Blood Surge one? You can make a go get 'em move. Yes. So their Blood Surge doesn't automatically move 6 inches. What it does now is you can reroll the d6 if you've got more than 10 guys, which is like not relevant for us, but is
That
like
was really
annoying.
annoying.
It's really annoying that they just got better Blood Surge, which was like, yeah. So then we have got Mega Knobs,
Meganobs,
which have gone to a 5-up Feel No Pain. And
which is fantastic because 4-up Feel No Pains are stupid, and we
super
don't need to talk
toxic.
about that anymore.
Yeah, they also got a hefty points bump, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think this actually goes a long way in balancing out orcs. I know a lot of people are saying like it's hit them too hard. I very much disagree with that. They were an extremely powerful army. A lot of people have been citing their win rate as a like a defensible tool for the
That's
fact
the
that like
Space
they're
Marine
not that bad.
argument.
It's the Space Marine argument. There was more people playing Bully Boys in this meta than there was World Eaters in this meta. So like more people were like, I'm gonna play Bully Boys, one of the Orc detachments, one of many. There was more people doing that than the entire World Eaters player base in this meta, which is like that should never be happening. The win rate for orcs was being dragged down by the fact that there was people running Dread Mob or whatever it's called, and they were bringing Stampas. Like those people were just like, I'm going out and I'm having a good time. But there's enough of them to drag down that win rate. And like Green Tide was hitting close to a 60% win rate, and Bully Boys was like 58 or 59 pretty
On
consistently.
release, I think it was pushing both of those are pushing mid 60s on release, which
more
the meta
recently, Bully Boys was dropping down a little bit, but Green Tide was just rising. Like Green Tide was pushing towards the mid 60s.
the meta in almost every army had to ask itself the question of, can I deal with Mega Knobs?
Yep.
And rewrote their lists to be able to deal with Mega Knobs, which is
Yep.
you never want one unit in the game warping every single army's lists, which was really annoying.
And that's what it was doing. So great to see orcs getting changes. They obviously got a lot of point increases as well, which is also very good. Nice. So Ironstorm is up next. You want to take Ironstorm here?
I actually haven't read what Ironstorm does. So I believe these are their 2 enhancements, right? The Master War Machine, yeah, they're 2 enhancements.
Yeah, they're not auras anymore. They're just like pick
Select one. Yeah, that's fantastic. So basically, they don't get to build this triangle of hell around one Tech Marine that's going to give 3 Whirlwinds and 2 Redemptors lethal hits. Now they actually have to think. It makes the Ironstorm player think in their game and pick one unit, not the whole thing. So they don't just get to like brain off, kill your whole army in one turn.
Now it's for those players.
Now it's brain on, kill half my army in one turn instead of the whole thing.
Well, as we'll move on, it might not be so clear. This isn't the only Ironstorm
change. It's the lethal and then the fallback and shoot, right? Yeah.
But
or advance.
Go up to the top because there's more.
Mercy's weakness changed to 2 CP.
Yay!
Love it.
We love to see it. So this is the old Desolation stuff. And then Impulsors went up in Transport, which I think is pretty cool because now you can actually do Blade Guard in a character. So hype for more melee Marines because that's just good fun. You're going to have to talk about Space Wolves because I actually have just managed to dodge Space Wolves for like an entire year of 10th edition.
My Space Wolf knowledge is like insane. Just I've played this matchup like 50 times, just from local friends, and then for some reason I play at least one in every tournament, no matter what tournament I go to. Um, Basically, Space Wolves had Champions of Russ, which was a detachment so bad that Space Wolf players in general just kind of adopted Stormlance as the Space Wolf detachment. Um, if you're a Space Wolf player, you had to go on a side quest basically to get your army rules, which most games you ended up failing all of your side quests. They involve one of your characters dying or getting injured but not dying, blowing up a vehicle, getting in your opponent's deployment zone, and these all activated the turn after you completed your side quest. And the idea is like your characters come back and like it's like the whole like Valhalla, like your characters go do a cool tale and now they're telling the tale and now their whole army gets inspired, right? So instead of having to go through a billion hoops to get just abilities that most armies just have, now they just get to start the game with one of those things and then get better from there.
That's
And for
probably a better
reference,
way of doing it. Yeah.
yeah, but they have army-wide Feel No Pain, army-wide Sustain, army-wide Lethal, and then there's an I think army-wide OC buff to give all their OC 0, OC 1. That's like probably the worst. But if your bar is giving the whole army a 6-up Feel No Pain at the start and it turns into Sustained later, that's just
That's good.
actually quite
Yeah,
good.
that's
That's
actually
real
just
good.
quite good. Yeah.
And you get to
Yeah.
cherry pick, like if you're playing against Knights and you want to have Lethal right off the get-go,
They
Heart's
kind of
Content,
have
go
like a
for it.
diet version of Blessings of Khorne, I guess.
It's not even diet, like it's permanent. Imagine like always having feel no pain and then
I
maybe
mean, you
sustained.
always can if you
And
want
then
to.
but the thing is like Space Wolf's roster is cracked too though,
Yeah,
because
it's a good
Thunderwolf
roster.
Cavalry did get a point increase, but they're
Yeah.
still dirt cheap. Wolfen are disgusting to deal with.
Yeah.
As a world leader player, they're one of the I usually just throw Angron at the problem. And Angron will sit there and eat them for 2 turns, and I just don't have to deal with that 160 point unit. I hate Wolfen that much that I usually throw Angron at them.
Fair enough.
Because nothing else, because they fight on death, they're 2 damage, strength 6. Like it's pretty nuts. So it's nice to see Champions of Rust getting help here.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better than Gladius. I don't know if it's better than Stormlance. My guess is it's probably better than Stormlance. Basically, just starting the game because their strats are also unlocked by completing these sagas.
It's at least a
Um,
consideration, right? You know, like Space Wolf players are going to have to kind of look at it now and say, like, all right, what do I want to build around here? But yeah, it's
Thunderwolf
cool.
Cav
Good to
being
see it.
four, yeah, Thunderwolf Cavalry being 4 wounds with a 6-up Feel No Pain is annoying to deal with. That's like almost a mini Wraith. They have
Yeah.
just a 1 step back from a Wraith. They're T6, 4-up invuln, 4 wounds with a Feel No Pain. And they're way more lethal than Wraiths. So
True. True.
if
But
Wraiths are
anything that
good and
pushes
you're
the
1 step
game
down,
closer towards a like melee centric, like competitive environment, I'm all about it, you know? So I'm not
sure.
complaining.
So I think this is a really cool change for them. I don't
Nice.
know if this is going to be game shattering for them. Space Wolves were representing a very high win rate.
Yes, they were really,
I
really doing quite well.
think that was a lack of just Space Wolves. I think they're like, from what Stat Check showed us too, very much so like a 4-1 army. Like they'll just run in and stop people just because your opponent doesn't know how to deal with mounted. But as soon as you figure the puzzle out for mounted is actually don't fight them and just stand in front of them with garbage, then
It's
you
a powerful
suddenly
ability, the old Jackal Wall. They can't do shit about that.
that's how you beat that army.
Yep.
So really
Uh,
exciting to see that.
Now we have Tau getting no changes, which I don't think is particularly surprising. One thing I'm super
Oh,
salty about is that Breachers didn't go up in any points, but we'll get to that when we get to it. T-Sons, this is probably the closest you've come to like Euphoria, right? Like I
yeah,
feel like
well, I'm
you
kind of a
hate this
Thousand Suns
army.
player. I hate the army, but I also play
Yeah,
them, so I can understand
yeah,
a little bit of it. I play them casually on the side, but they have a lot of really dumb interactions that just
yeah,
feel like they're breaking the rules of the game, which Zinch bullshit, right? But like, let's not go too hard. That's not something you should design around. Um,
yeah. I
they
mean,
got
so they got
I read their
let's caveat this by saying they got nerfed like pretty.
horror. This is pretty bad for
This is
them.
probably one of the biggest nerfs in the balanced data slate, I would say, in terms of like the actual
Thrown
balanced
straight
data
down
slate
the
component.
stairs, and
Yeah, like
a lot of their interactions situationally pretty much don't change,
yeah,
but they're now a lot more situational and not consistent anymore. They can't just have this one little hide in the corner game plan, run out and cast 50 spells with one dude. Now they actually have to spread out, and honestly, for the Thousand Suns player, I'm sorry, you have to think more while you're playing your game,
Yeah.
which was already something really hard to do for that army. So like we can just start by saying, first the Cabal of Sorcerers army rule. You can't dump a billion. This is just saying that you can't have one wizard cast all the spells. You get one spell per wizard. That's it. So no more peeking the corner, casting all your
No more
spells, and
Magnus
then
moving like a million inches into your deployment zone and then like shitting out multiple Doom bolts into you. Like that's just not happening anymore, which is good.
yep. So now if they want to do the same amount of value that they had before, they have to actually show you their whole army, reveal themselves, and actually play the game.
Yep.
Twist of Fate, which was their turn off your armor save, now just gives them a flat +2 AP, which is like, at first I was like, oh, that's huge, but then you're like, oh, it's Rubric Marines. There's just AP3, AP4 now, which is like still really fucking good, but
Yeah,
it's not.
It kind of sort of comes out at about the same thing, right?
It's a nerf, but it's like, is it really though?
Yeah.
My Land Raider goes from having no saves to having a 6-up save. Thanks.
Be dead anyway.
Especially after he eats a Doom Bolt first. Like, yeah, that one's not as crazy as it looks. Doom
That's
Bolt
like, you know what that is? That's like the equivalent of like when they nerfed rates in the last balance status slate by like upping the points of like the little character dude that attached to them.
It's just like sure, bro. It still feels bad.
Yeah.
Now I'd say it feels worse because now you're making me roll the save that is still going to show me my dead Land Raider.
I'm dead anyway. Now you're just making me do a step. It's actually ruder is what it is. It's just ruder. So Doombolt got changed so that it could only like snipe load ups, which is fine. Doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, so
this is
Temporal Surge.
Ones. Yeah.
No more double moving. That was really annoying. Having Magnus go 50 inches across the board, like just advance, move, was really annoying.
No more triple moving. You can still double move. Like move normally and then, move again.
Well, it says this unit cannot be selected for this ritual more than once per phase. So no, that is
you can't
only one move. You can't triple move.
Yeah.
Oh, but sorry, yeah, you can double move. My bad. You can still move just 40 inches, just not 60.
Yeah.
My bad. You can't move 60 inches. You can move 40.
Yeah. It's pretty big though. That is actually like one of the things that they did like in pretty much every single game I played Thousand Suns is like either Magnus or the 20 Zangor brick or something like that just did like a triple move at some point, and it's just like, man, okay, cool, I guess. Hard to play around that.
And like if we're gonna look at something to also talk about with that change, the Exalted Sorcerer got nerfed quite hard, which it needed to. That unit was dumb and did way more than it should have.
Yep.
It almost paid for itself with its stat line alone. And then this Binding Tendrils ability was back-breaking for specific armies, specifically World Eaters. Specifically World Eaters playing at majors that don't have terrain to hide behind. Looking at you, Adepticon.
I'm looking at you, Brian. Are you still carrying some weight? Jesus. So, okay, what it's done
Adepticon
is that it's in your shooting phase after this model is shot. Select one enemy unit hit by one of those attacks with its arcane fire. And until the start of your next move, they're pinned, which means they're -2 move, -2 charge rolls. Not -2 to your advanced rolls. I just noticed that. Holy Jesus, that's even... So, okay, that used to be...
So you just auto-advance 6. And yeah, it used to be half move, half charge, it was half your life. Like, so you just died inside.
A really big change. But the really, really big thing is that this happens after you've shot. So normally what would happen is you would have this Disc Sorcerer jump in, do the funny magic power, which happened whenever you kind of wanted it to in the shooting phase, and then move away because he would do the double move. But now the double move happens at the start of the shooting phase, but this happens after a unit is shot. So the Sorcerer on Disc can no longer jump into a building, zap you with a minus movement, and then jump away. Now he's going to be stuck there, which is a real bad time for him if he's stuck there next to Berserkers or something like that. So
which is real nice because he's an expensive model. Yep. At 105 points base, if they're not throwing stuff on him, and that's forcing the Thousand Suns player to literally play the game, which was the most annoying part, is because now they have to commit a resource. Sure, you can hurt my movement a little bit, but now you're giving something up for it, potentially.
Yeah, it's a huge change. So T-Sun's taking some real big hits there.
They kind of got thrown down the stairs.
Yeah. I think they'll still be okay.
They're going to be fine. They still get to do broken shit, but now they have to play the game.
Yep.
which, like I said, for the Thousand Suns players, I'm sorry, you have to think even harder, which is like an army that already has to, you need like a math degree to play.
Nids. Okay. You want me to take nids?
Well, sure, I have no idea what happened in here,
Okay.
really. I just know there's a lot of red.
I have a relatively good knowledge of nids in the sense that I know many people who play them. And nids got a lot of buffs here in really cool ways. Um, so first of all, the synapse has changed that basically when a unit is in synapse range for the Tyranids, they get +1 to the strength characteristic of melee attacks. That is very, very big. Nids have a lot of units which are 1 strength away from passing a breakpoint, which makes them very efficient into that. Gauns, for example, the little Hormigons, now go to strength 4 when they're in synapse range, which is really fucking good. Amongst many other things in the game, which now go from like strength 9 to strength 10 or strength 10 to strength 11. I think the Norns was one that came to mind. They get a really big boost here. So that's already really good. Hilariously, this happens to be exactly the magical predicted ability that StatCheck did on their wishlist thing, while claiming that they didn't have the balanced status slate. Seems highly interesting that they managed to predict everything perfectly. Who would have known? Anyway, whatever about that. So, Crusher Stampede got like a little bit of a buff. I don't really think this is like very relevant. Basically, it adds 2 OC to a unit when they're at their starting strength. So it's like kind of
It's okay.
It's fine.
No, you're not playing you're not. This is not making you play Crushers.
It's not amazing. But it's nice that it's there. And then the untrammeled ferocity stratagem is basically, what did that do again? It allows you to move through stuff. I actually don't know what that did originally, so I can't tell you about that. The Hive Tyrant, this has a really spicy one. So now it gives off an aura of lethal hits in combat, which is so good. Like, you know, you want this guy actually going up and doing stuff in combat. And now, not only will he do stuff in combat, but all the homies around him will as well. Does this make Hive Guard relevant, or not Hive Guard, Tyrant Guard relevant?
No, this is definitely
not.
just
They're still real bad.
Probably not, but this is like
that could be good warriors.
What the really Ravagers? Is it Ravagers? The little snake guys?
Yeah.
I think your Ravagers, your Gene Stealers, and your Hormigons are feasting right now.
Yeah. Just gonna hop into chat for a second. Stephen X wants to know any indication if big guns never tire affects Hellboot Frenzy shooting if engagement range. So there was like a lot of designer commentary around big guns never tire this time, and it basically all boiled down to the same thing, which was what we all knew it should have been all along and have been saying. Big guns never tire. Doesn't work unless it's literally your shooting phase. So it won't work for the Hellbrute. It won't work in Overwatch. It won't work in all the other times when, like, you know, the Imperial Guard player was like, oh, you killed me in combat, so now I'm going to shoot on death with my tank commander. No, the answer is just like no to all of these things now, which is great. Really glad that we've got actual clarification. Anyway, a lot of bugs got Synapse as well. So Synapse has been added to the Neurolictor. It's also been added to the Moloch, Raveners, and Trigon in Vanguard, which is very spicy.
It seems really hard to never not be in Synapse now.
Yes, which means you're probably going to have combat buffs up the whole time as well.
It's like one turn 5 when you're tabled, pretty
here
much.
That I'm like really scared about. The Neuro Tyrant can now join Zone Thropes. You might just be like, yeah, okay. So do you know what the Neuro Tyrant does, Brian, for the unit it joins?
I know it's nutty, and I remember reading it being a really good ability.
+1
but
to
then I also
wound
yes,
if they've been battle shocked. So you'll have zones absolutely blasting people. But there's something much scarier that this does. The Neurotyrant is a monster. The zones are not. But as we all know, when a unit joins another unit, they kind of share the keywords. Big Guns Never Tire doesn't specify model, it just specifies unit. So now, if you go in and try and lock these zone tropes in close combat, they will all be able to blast into and out of combat.
That's dumb.
Gonna be fucking really annoying to play against.
So
but
make sure you kill them when you touch them, or else bad things happen.
Or else you're gonna be warp blasted into the sun. So then what else happened? I think something happened with the Broodlord. Yeah, they gain like Shadow in the Warp and stuff, which is fine.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, the Rupture Cannon is D6 +6 damage now. Hilarious. And the Exocrine, which probably didn't need a buff, is now strength 9 on its main gun, which is also
Yeah,
quite scary.
that was one of my complaints about Tyranids in general, is that every single list was about 1,800 points the same.
Yeah.
And the most consistent thing across all of them was the triple Exocrine. So
Yeah.
nice seeing them go to strength 9. I mean, I'm not sure how many thresholds that pushes them over. I don't know how much T8's out there, but there's a lot of
A
T9.
lot of T9. I guess it means it's winning those things on 4s. But yeah, really happy for Nids. I think it's really cool that they were like, let's make melee Nids good. And I'm like, yeah, let's go, boys. I have seen a lot of people saying that Vanguard is going to be extremely powerful now because of all the extra stuff that they've gotten here. Ultimately, like, unless it's like super oppressive, I don't really care. I think it's like super nice that Nids have seen this love, because I think a lot of Nid players were really scared of this balanced data slate with, like, you know, Biovores not being as good with the Spore Mine scoring abilities and stuff. I think it's fair that they were worried that they were just like, oh yeah, GW aren't going to pay attention to us, and are just kind of take away our ability to score, and then we're just going to be super bad. But they did not do that.
GW has done that before,
Yeah,
so
they
the
have done
precedent
that
was there with
before.
ADMEC.
But this is like awesome. This is a set of really, really cool
I
changes. Like, I
I
love what they've done with the place.
I don't know if it'll be enough, but I know it's going to be a lot because I can say that that Biovore did make up like 20 to 15 points of
Yeah.
your Tyranid players scoring.
I think Vanguard are going to be super good at scoring. Like, I
I th This is a good direction for, I feel like, for world leaders too. If Tyranids get pushed in this direction, I think we're happy. If we have
yeah.
Tyranid players actually interacting with us and not trying to hide behind gargoyles,
Yeah, because
we should
they
be able.
won't really, they just won't be able to do that anymore, which is big. And then we get to world leaders who saw 0
Nothing.
changes. Sad, but not terribly surprising, I would have said. And that's the Slade aspect of the stream. Let's take a brief moment to just touch in with chat. If you've got questions, now would be a good time. The Neuro's leader ability is not to only melee rain. I believe it is just shooting as well. And yes, Don, it is dumb. And only the vehicles and monsters take the -1 to hit due to big guns never tear. So I'm pretty sure that means the zones will be blasting you at 2s in combat. And we've got Aiden dropping in saying poo poo data slate makes him grumpy. Yeah. I didn't really realize how badly Deckard got shafted until we were talking earlier, and you know, I felt a little bit like I was like in the chat with with Aiden and Tiskin Podcast as well, and the boys were just like, "We've been hit so hard," and I was just like cackling in the corner, being like, "Even more 8 pound."
More. Yeah.
Yeah.
Snake Lips. No, I will not be going to the Lone Star Open. I just bought a house and I'm poor, so I gotta not be poor. So that's gonna take a little bit of time.
One great way
I,
for us not to be poor and make us go to more tournaments is for people to sub to us on Patreon, which gives you access to the competitive Patreon Discord channel, which is a great place to get lots of good advice. So if you want to support us and get us some more tournaments, sub to our Patreon, and that's a needless shill put in there. Also, if you want to super chat and get, like, you know, competitive questions answered, we will do that during the stream. But we got a lot to talk about. So what's up next?
Next, we're looking at points. We're gonna try to go through here and just share our thoughts for each army. We'll try to keep it mildly brief, but
Yep.
Dara may go off on hate tangents when we get to specific armies.
I had like a nice little hate tangent already. I'm feeling
It'll
good,
come back.
but I think
I
it's
feel
gonna come
like
back. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like the timer's resetting right now.
Yeah.
So we'll start with probably the biggest one in the room.
Yeah. Look at
A
all that red,
whole lot of
baby.
red.
Let's go.
Adeptus Sororitas.
So
This I don't think you guys heard our thoughts yet about the Sisters Codex
if you were
before
in the
today.
Patreon competitive Discord, you would have heard our thoughts, which is
It was
probably good
vitriol.
that it was like kept to Justin there, because we were not happy.
Brooding. Actually, not brooding. We
Yeah.
were loudly brooding.
Yeah.
This
So
army had the potential to be on release Eldar.
yeah, definitely.
70%
If not
win
more
rate,
powerful.
unfair.
Yeah.
It's just asymmetrical, consistent bullshit. All of their stuff got better. Obviously, you can see that it's got point increases to go along with all of their stuff getting better. I think the rough range is the competitive Sisters lists went up 400, 450 points if you kept them the
I
same.
think 500 is like what most people's list went up. Yeah.
Okay, but they're still gonna have to redesign their lists
Yeah.
to fit
And
the detachments.
I've seen like sisters lists, like some of the homies were sending me lists today, and like they look good, but I'm not like stressed out of my mind about playing them anymore. You know, I'm not just like, oh, that's 1,000,001 different things. I'm like, okay, this looks like an army that will give me a close game and a tough game, but I will be able to potentially beat it. So yeah.
And first of all, thank you, Rin. I appreciate it. I'll just sell my house so I can go to tournaments forever
Hey,
now.
thanks, Ren.
And um,
We're sorry you
yeah,
got a house.
yeah. My bad. My
I'm
bad
not
for.
sorry. I'm real happy.
It'll be nice because hey, think about this like an investment. I have a nice little studio getting built right now, and hopefully we'll be having streamed games,
Yep.
and we already have a few cool themes for the first few coming out.
Yep. Yeah,
Hopefully
Rain,
that
I
can actually
agree with
start
you. I
happening
think the
soon.
points are like definitely still a little bit low on some of these things. Like I look at the Triumph and I'm like, I think I said
That's
it in
the
the Patreon chat where I was like, if this thing was 400 points, I would still take it, and it's like 190, so it's definitely still pretty
it's gonna
good.
You will see it in every single sisters
Yeah,
list,
yeah,
probably until it's
definitely.
like
Yeah,
250, if I'm being honest, and you'll probably still see it.
yeah,
Big thing worth noting, because I've had it done to me multiple times, Paragon Warsuits. I just want to briefly talk about Tank Shock right now, because that was a really annoying combo that Paragon Warsuits had. Tank Shock has now changed to toughness of models, and I have been smacked in the mouth so many times by one Paragon Warsuit with a mace being strength like 15, just bonking me across the fucking like forehead. So it's nice to see that change. Now I don't have to be as scared of that unit just 6 mortal
yeah.
wounding me and then munching me.
I mean, Repentia are still very cheap at 90 points. You know, stuff like that. Like
Arco
the
flat
Arcos, what are they at now?
150 now,
150. Yeah,
which is justice. I feel like we're getting where they should be, but
we're
they
getting there. You can still pop a
kind of
four up,
got
feel no
strictly
pain on
better.
them. So, you know.
They kind of got strictly better in the new
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
But
If you look at it through a certain lens, they got better. Yeah. Look, I
I
think we'll have to see how this shakes out with sisters, though, right? We really need to see how they kind of now do in Pariah and all that kind of good stuff, right?
They are the strongest written codex based off of just rules, which is always a good place to be. Like you'd rather have great rules and bad points than bad points or good points and bad rules, because then you just
Correct.
end up like ADMEC. This is the opposite situation. So this is something that's going to change over time. I still think Sisters are going to be one of the armies to beat. A lot of the playtesters I know of were conveniently playtesting at about 1.5k points, so maybe they knew
Yeah.
something. But they were playtesting at that and still winning almost every single one of their games. So Sister still probably is going to be the army to beat for the
They're going to be
next
on every single
3 months.
WTC team, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah, will just have matchups that they just slaughter. A lot of their play style is going to change a lot. They do a lot of things that are still going to seem unfair, but at least they're being priced more appropriately for that, albeit probably not enough.
Yes. All right.
Custodes.
Custodes went
Everything they
down in like some random places.
Yeah, all their Forge World stuff got cheaper, which is
Yeah.
like
Just
fine.
fine. Whatever.
Nobody's playing Telemons. Nobody's gonna be playing Venet. No.
Uh, some
Yeah,
people
not
will
your
play
Venatori.
Venetari. Yeah. I think like Custodes are like
Um,
well positioned now to kind of like come back into the meta in a somewhat meaningful way. You know?
Random point drop on one enhancement. Nice.
Yeah.
It's,
Who knows what
I
that
don't know
does?
if that's relevant. I don't know what that
Yeah.
does, but I'm assuming
I
that
think we
was
have to
25
start like
points.
actually genuinely like considering Custodes again, not as like an army to beat, but just as an army that we have to be aware about if we're going to a tournament, right?
Okay, yep. Just something to mention real quick. ADMEC did get completely buffed in their lethality, and they conversely got points nerfs, which is actually good to see.
Yep. Bit of
People were
proactivity
complaining
here.
that like we mentioned it in our matchup tier list that maybe people were like, "Oh, AdMech is a bad army. That means it should be an easy win rate for us." No, that's not the case. That's just nobody plays AdMech, so we can't actually get data. This is a good change. Having your models actually cost more and be better is good because that means you can actually afford to buy your army without having to take a mortgage out. So being able to actually field the army, now we can actually start seeing results. Hopefully we see more AdMech players playing. I would love to see what that army does. I really haven't been bothered to read anything about
Yeah,
them.
listen, I don't have the time to
And
dive deep
I
into
would
like a
love to
full
care.
codex rewrite.
I would love to care. Let me care. So
Yeah.
that's all I'll say for them if you have
Make me
anything to
care.
say.
Make him care. Make Brian cry. All
Make me
right, what's up
cry.
next? Adeptus Titanicus.
Uh,
Shockingly, no changes.
Drop the Reaver Titan to 2,000 points, you cowards.
Bring it down, baby.
That's
Let
my
us
only
do it.
comment.
Let us do it.
I
Eldar.
love when Eldar has red, and I love all of the things that are red on this list. That is all I will say.
hate release, right? I'll leave you go off on this one.
I'm going to be going to WCW this year, and I went to WCW last year, and I played Eldar 4 games in a row against 4 fantastic players, and oh my God, I never want to play against that list again. Every single list was the exact same. They all ran 3 warp spiders. They all ran the same amount of swooping hawks. It was disgusting. It was unfun. Excuse me, unfun to play against. I'm like almost like gagging over here thinking about that event.
you're, you're regressing.
Um,
You're going into nails mode, man. Yeah.
and they got points drops on a lot of. It looks like all of
All the things that were in the Eldar
their
MSU
Phoenix
list that
Lords.
were really annoying, like went up in points, which I'm like, oh my god,
And
they actually did it.
I don't know
Um,
how many points they went up, but if enough of these things are going
it's
up
like
and every list played three of them, it has to be a lot.
yeah, it's like
So,
10 or 15 points for most units. Although
and you
Yvrain
know
did
what?
go up like 25 points, which I'm like, what did she? I mean, I know she
And
was
if
good, but like, whoa.
she was poking her head out for, she wasn't relevant for very long, but
Yeah.
she definitely got hit on the head really quick. If I'm seeing Eldar players actually have to play in the middle of the board and not play these like dumb jump away from me, don't interact with me, shoot and run away, because Scourges also got nerfed, which that I still don't think like if I'm not allowed to use like World Eater rules with Bloodletters, why are they allowed to use Yanari rules with Scourges? That just doesn't make sense. But that's where we are. Um, I'm probably being a little malicious. Eldar actually seemed like they were totally fine. They're just an incredibly obnoxious army to play against.
Against
When
yeah,
they
like so the level that you're playing at when you're playing at the top tables, Eldar feels very different from when you're playing a mid tables player on MSU Eldar. It's like a completely different experience. So that opinion might be polarized depending on where you normally find yourself in a tournament. I do think it's pretty cool that like all the name Phoenix Lords like went down in points. Karandras and 90 is genuinely quite scary, I think. Like, how much is Scorps again? Scorpions are
and they got a point decrease in the last.
yeah, they're 65 for 5, so like
That's
one
pretty cheap.
155 for Karandras and 5 seems like very good to be honest. Or like what is it? 130 and 90, so you're looking at 220. Basically like around the points of like a 10-man berserker squad without a character for like a guy who will just like sustain 1 million in combat. Like I genuinely think that's like quite a cool point place for them to be. So we'll have to see how it shakes out. Um but yeah, Eldar players are probably losing 1 to 2 units from the MSU list, which is kind of what they lost in the last one. So I think now we're kind of whittling down to a point where those top table players aren't necessarily just having like an easy win the whole time. I do think it might disproportionately affect the kind of like mid table or lower table Eldar players who will probably start to really, struggle with the faction now. But I kind of think that Eldar should be a faction that is like very difficult to master. It's like, it's just the type of army that it is.
Uh, I know that's one complaint Eldar players have been having is if they wanted to continue to play the meta list, their armies just look so small. Like
Yeah.
after you throw in the avatar and after you throw in the select amount of vehicles, it really looks like they're playing a combat patrol at this point.
Yeah.
But that's a very
Oh
annoying
yeah,
combat
Shadow
patrol to
Specters
play
are up.
against.
Let's go. Let's go.
Again, I same things I set up here. Really annoying things that fly around that I can't interact with.
Things that can actually
Um,
get meaningful plunging fire on me. Which happens in the UKTC a lot.
oh look, they got buffs. So many
Psych.
buffs. You see green in here? Yeah, the
It's
Manticore and
fake.
Basilisk should actually just be red anyways, even though it went down.
Yeah.
Core rules change. You can no longer you auto fail if you're shooting indirect on ones, twos, and threes. I've been shot
Huge.
at by Manticores and Medusas hitting on twos, re-rolling, and it was stupid.
Yeah.
So really cool to see that indirect change. F in chat for guard players
Is it F in
because
chat? Like, I mean,
it's
the toxic
they were
mechanic that they had available to them has now been removed.
so now they're stuck to playing Flavor Guard, which has like a 20% win rate.
But they've gotten buffs to Flavor Guard, you know? You don't have to
Yeah,
stay
it's
still to
like
get your army
I
rule anymore. I don't think it's like that bad, to be honest. I think like Guard are one
mm,
of those like armies like Marines, which their like overall win rate is like basically fake because it's like very much dragged down by the fact that it has a massive player base of which many people are casual tournament attendees. Like that is actually just the reality of the situation.
I think
I
that's
think
also just guard players have 300 model armies and they don't feel like painting 300 more models to shift the meta, so
yeah,
they just play with what they have painted.
yeah. I mean, like Rough Rider lists, they're still going to be really good. You can't resurrect like 3 squads over the course of a game, but you can still resurrect one, and sometimes that might be all you need.
120 points for what this squad offers, even if you ignore the fact you can resurrect it, is bananas.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Okay, what's up next?
Black Templars, same thing from
Gladiators
the
went up.
last, but
Yeah,
more, yeah. I've had Angron one shot by Lancers multiple times this edition, and I have no sympathy for them.
Yeah, we
Moving
kind of
on.
talked about like Black Templars already. Bangles stayed the same, which is probably
I'm
quite
kind of
good actually. I think that's like they're going to be in a happy place now. I feel.
I'd want to see Death Company go up just a little bit more, but that's
Yeah,
it.
I think Blood Angels could be like one of our biggest predators in the upcoming meta in terms of like the
They're
army to beat.
they're rough. They're a lot. The
Yeah.
problem they present is very hard for us to solve, and it's very easy for them to present the problem, which is 4 CP and stare at us.
So demons,
Um,
which we've already talked about a little bit in terms of the balanced data slate, but wow, they got points drops as well, which is like, let's fucking go, dude. Thirster down, Bellicor down, Demon Prince going down here, but not going down in World Leaders. So I think that now means that World Leaders are the only army that hasn't had their Demon Prince come down from the original index cost, which is
feels
just
bad.
like fair enough, I
Even
guess.
the winged Demon Prince is also one of probably the bottom half of Demon Princes too, I'd say.
Yeah.
Bellicor coming down, nice. He's already an auto include. Like if you've ever had to fight Bellicor on the board too, um, he doesn't do anything. Like his damage output is just like non-existent. Like anything that you'd want to be throwing a heavy hitting model into will live his hit and then clap back and kill
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
So seeing him come down a little bit is nice. Bloodthirster's down.
He's also like massively devalued now that the whole Shadow of Chaos thing has changed to include greater demons as well, because it's kind of like, well, why am I actually really bringing Bellicor? I guess he still projects the like anti-shoot thing, but I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing in the world. Like,
Oh, I'm sorry, we got some hate going on in the chat.
we got some
Aiden
hate going
saying
on.
that Aiden's saying
Oh,
that his Demon Prince didn't go down, but
Aiden can shut up. Also, hello, Josh. Josh is the demons player who spanked my buttocks in Bristol. Um, Aiden can shut up because the plague surgeon went down, and he's been asking for that all edition.
yeah,
So
you can have your Plague Surgeon
you've
now. He's
got the
good,
plague
right?
surgeon, bro.
He's
Relax.
good. He's good, right?
um. So yeah,
So
then
continuing
yeah,
Demonettes dropped. I wanted Bloodletters to
I
be 100
know,
points.
dude. When Bloodletters didn't drop, I was like, we were so close to greatness. We almost had it, and then we didn't.
Nurglings are decreasing in points if you decide to be a shithead and bring 9 model Nurgling units.
So this
I
is
mean,
really cool. Okay, can we like touch on this for a sec? Because I find it
I
really,
guess.
really interesting that GW are now tweaking that level of balance, where they're like, okay, different size squads actually have different value depending on the size of those squads. Because there's some instances in the field manual update where lower squad numbers have gone up in points, but higher squads have gone down. Like 5-man scourges got more expensive, and 10-man scourges got cheaper. I think that's like super cool that they're starting to twist that balance lever. Like, I genuinely think
That's good
this is like
design.
we're seeing a little bit of they have a better understanding of what's actually happening in the competitive game, right?
Yep, I really think that's neat because people will spam the best thing in MSU, but as soon as you make it a 10-man and they actually have to commit, a bigger decision has to be
Aiden is
made.
so salty. He was trying to have solidarity with us. I know, Aiden. I'm sorry. Um, yeah. On that note,
Uh,
actually, me, Aiden, and the boys will probably be doing a stream on. I think it's Sunday. We have to talk about like the Chaos Pantheon in general. So yeah, make sure you tune in for that. But yeah, Soul Grinder going down. Cool.
so
Skull Cannon going down. Hot.
Yep, I'd say Skull Cannon, Soul Grinder are probably the most relevant changes here. Soul Grinder is already one of the better units in the index. I've played against triple Soul Grinder lists. They're really scary. Specifically, the Mark of Tzeentch laser beam one, I think, was really scary. So that's just cool to see. I don't know
Yeah.
if the Bloodthirster is going to see play because, like, it's already
Oh, I
fighting
think so. I think so.
when you're talking big demons, you're already fighting. Like, it's not going to see more play than it was before. Some people were playing the one of, like, with the Blood Crusher spam lists. And you're more like combined demon stuff. I don't think you're going to beat out the Lord of Change with the
Maybe.
rod. I don't think you're beating out Bellicor. I don't think you're beating out. There's more of an argument to do it. Maybe I haven't played demons in a while. I personally am a demons player, but it's been a minute since I've touched them.
Chaos Knights. I love this. I love this. The Knight
The
Abominant, Jack's favorite, has come down in points. It's still trash. No one will
Still
ever
not
take
playing
it.
it.
Yeah. The
That's like
spoiler, also down, which is like okay, like basically some big knights go down is the thing here. So I was talking to one of the boys in Bristol over the weekend, and we said if the Atropos drops to 420 points, it's an extremely playable unit. I think we're going to see a lot of Atroposes showing up in lists now. If you don't know what the Atropos is, one of the Forgel Cerastus Knights. It has 2 guns and a very good melee profile. So it kind of has like the best of everything. I genuinely think we could see this guy showing up. The Knight Lancer also went down, which is fair enough because its main thing of like tank shock crapping on you with like 21 dice is now reduced to, I guess, what tier are they? 12, 11?
Probably
Like
12.
close to half the
So
dice
they're
they
gonna
were
just
rolling
throw
before.
14 dice at you.
Ye-
Do they still have the
no,
plus
you
2
don't get
for
the plus 2. You
tougher
don't
than your
get that
toughness?
thing
There's no.
anymore. Nope.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, effing chat from Mauler Fiend. Um.
Yep.
All
So
right.
that's cool for them. Lord of Dread went down, which is probably a battle shock based enhancement. I don't know. It's probably trash. So CSM.
I'm trying to be excited about my Dread Talents attachment. I have an RTT this weekend. I submitted old points, and that list went up about 140 points.
Okay, I
There,
think it's pretty fair to say that CSM got shit on a little bit too hard here. I
there's
feel pretty bad for them considering that they got like 2.5 months. Did they even get 2.5 months? In the
no, this
UKTC, they only got like Bristol was the first time CSM was legal. That was 1 week ago.
they've
I
pretty
think
much gotten
this
to
is pretty rough.
see like they've pretty much only gotten to see like 1 or 2 weekends of actual gameplay, and
Yeah,
the results coming out of that is yes, I think they did smash a GT quite hard with triple warp talent spam, which is fair. That unit deserved to get nerfed. Um,
yeah.
but
But like Havocs,
Havocs, with Obliterators being the go-to shooting unit, now they're quite garbage, if I'm being honest. Havocs getting nerfed doesn't feel great because that's now your go-to shooting unit. Venom Crawler going up in points, probably warranted. That thing was kind of silly.
yeah.
Legionnaires were already dirt cheap, but like Raptors, your Vindicator, your Predators, your Accursed Cultists,
The accursed cult is going up. I was like, no.
they saw your
um,
video and are just spiting
they
you.
saw my video, yeah.
It's
But to be fair, all I had to do for my cultist list was drop like one enforcer. And very importantly, many people may not have seen this. They fixed the chaos cult enhancement, so now you can scout. It gives the whole unit scout now instead of just a dude that's carrying it. So that's good
so
times. But I don't
in
know.
overall,
This feels rough
I
for
feel like
CSM.
Chaos Space Marines weren't putting out like or weren't putting out Orcs level. Like when Orcs they hit the ground running. They came out 65% win rate. I believe CSM was hovering around high 40s,
High 40s, yeah.
sometimes low
Yeah.
50s.
How much
So
of this do you
this
think
will,
is like a byproduct of a certain feedback loop in terms of the content creators and design team being in closer contact than they probably were before? Like, how much of this do you think is like a product of that? Because this feels like it's actually just not that representative of how the wider meta is. But
I feel like this is one WTC list getting shit on quite hard.
I, I'm kind
At
of in
the
the same boat.
expense,
Yeah,
and I think this one WTC list has really good pairings in teams, and I feel like the teams meta is entirely shaping what this ended up being. And
I
I
think this is
wasn't
a
real,
byproduct of teams as well, and I think that's a really not a good thing for the game.
and I don't think like Warp Talent. I've been playing with Warp Talons off and on. Yes, they are really good. I haven't really gotten the hang of playing them perfectly yet myself, but they haven't felt unbeatable. And I've been of the opinion that like one brick is probably the way, unless you're playing against an army that just can't deal with that level of mobility. I'm not. I think they should have given this codex a little bit more time to simmer.
Yeah,
I think even in its current state, if you didn't change anything, this would not be running away with GTs. I think you'd have pilots here and there winning. Like armies are allowed to win, and
yeah.
I think they need to demonstrate the need to get nerfed other than backroom testing against fixed matchups. I don't know.
I like we
I
had like
obviously
the
don't know their
whole
reasoning. Maybe they know more than me, but this seems a little unnecessary.
we had a wait and see attitude for Eldar and Necrons, but CSM getting kicked in the nuts after like functionally less than 1 month of
And
real
I think
data feels like
the
what's
the
going on
timing
here?
that we're right in front of WTC as well tells me that
Yeah,
this is
it's a
them
little bit
trying
dodgy.
to be a little afraid of. They were afraid of what CSM could have been in the WTC tournament. Nobody wants to see the same Renegade Raiders list in every single team, right? So they maybe knee jerked and killed that list.
Yeah,
Or they didn't kill it. It's
because
probably still going to see
like
play,
right,
but
it's the
that
stuff
list
that
went
is
up
in. It's
200.
all the stuff in the Renegade Raiders. It's like the Predators, the Vindicator, Legionnaires, Talons. I know Talons are kind of like the exception there,
Raptors
but
just
like
caught like a bullet to the head for no reason. Just straight, it went straight through they're like, oh, you know what else has jump packs? Raptors, and nerfed probably one of the worst infantry units in the book.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of this. I think this is not representative of the wider meta or the wider player base, and I genuinely think this is just quite unfair. Considering how Necrons got treated for like 9 months or 6 months, however
Yeah.
long they've been out, I
The
think
same
this is
list was
not
stomping
fair.
every single GT for 9 months straight
Yeah,
and got a slap on the wrist, which we'll get to in a second. I'm not going to be try to be too upset about this, but
yeah, we'll move
this
on.
also really like my last gripe with this is a lot of the things that got changed are core across every single CSM list, and it's not core as in units that are being spammed. This is hurting every single detachment. Every single detachment got touched by this, which is why I'm
Well,
also unhappy. It's not just raiders
not
that got
every
hurt.
single detachment, Brian. Not every
You have a
single
curse cultist
detachment.
in here.
Oh come on, I've got points at the ass. It's fine.
Oh, sure. But you still, this nerf hit everybody, and definitely CSM was one of those books where every detachment felt balanced, minus maybe one, and now they all kind of, I don't know, eating a
Yeah.
150 point nerf for no reason. Dark Angels, I think we talked about this earlier. They got
We
a
did,
point
yes.
increase because they got better.
Cool. Um,
Death Guard.
DG. Yeah,
Your Plague
so
Surgeon got cheaper. You should be happy.
yeah, Aiden, let's be real. Plague Surgeon's cheaper. Plague Surgeon meta. Okay,
Uh,
so like it's ups and downs here. Blight Lords went down again. Like wilds. Can these guys get any cheaper? Um, these are Terminators at 155 points. They're like what? It's crazy. Five Blight Lord Terminators now the same price point as three Exalted Ape Bands. Three Exalted Ape Band are definitely better, but yeah, here we are. The Biologist goes up and the Foul Blight Spawn goes up. So two very key characters eating point nurse, which is pretty rough. The little Blight Holder things are like running around at a little bit cheaper now, which I think makes sense because they were like the same price as a. Oh no, now they're the same price as a drone. I don't know. I don't understand that one. I think Deckard kind of eat shit a little bit because of the indirect nerf, which is very rough for them. Um, their PBCs going to hitting on fours is not very nice. I guess if you're not running PBCs, it's probably okay. But I still think it's like quite rough in general for DG. I think they have a harder time into World Eaters now. They probably have to lean into Plague Marine spam, which is
let me check. I was actually debating playing Death Guard at my upcoming GT instead of World Leaders just to spice it up. A friend was going to
nice.
lend me his army, and
Yeah,
that list went up 50 points
yeah.
from this, mainly because I was doing what all Death Guard players do and spam Plague
Hey,
Marines with
DJN, thanks
characters.
for becoming a member. Appreciate it, homie. Obviously as well, chat. If you've got any questions, we're trying to keep an eye on the chat bar. But if you want to super chat us, we can touch on those straight away. Otherwise, we'll catch up with them as we can.
I,
I think DG is in a tough spot though. I think
I
like with the indirect changes, with heroic being cheaper, um, it's gonna be hard for them in this meta. I think.
we'll see. I will say one cool thing is Myphatic Blight Haulers, which I thought were already pretty good. You have like a 10 wound T10 Demon Engine at 90 points.
Yeah,
There was a whole argument, I'd say, for Venom Crawlers that they were broken just because of how cheap they were and the damage output they had. These are like 30 points cheaper, and they can be put in squads, and they have melta guns, and they have missile launchers, and they have decent melee. I think these things are quite nuts. If I was a Death
yeah.
Guard player, maybe I'd consider pivoting off of PBCs, maybe one PBC just to have access to some indirect support, and then pull out your Blight Haulers. I
I
don't know.
think
They look
I
nuts.
feel like Don used to run a shit ton of blight holders, like not in 10th, but like in the LVO meta. I have a memory of him like running over me with like a bunch of those dudes. Anyway, yeah, tough for DG.
They're
We'll talk more about
T9.
them.
T9's still quite high for a 90 point model.
Yeah, they're basically blood slaughterers with guns.
What
Skip
army?
that
I
watch.
don't.
They're about to be like not fake in a couple of or not real in a couple of months, and then Drakari they get a drop on the Ravager and Grotesques, which is I guess like sort of nice, and then the Scourges go up or down depending on what squad size you have. So this is good for actual Drakari players who like the 10 Scourge squad because of pain tokens, um, and it's bad for Yanari players who don't give a shit about the pain tokens and just love spamming the small Scourge squads. But I think functionally Dark Eldar don't really like particularly shift in terms of where they were. However, they are better because of Pariah being a mission pack, which kind of rewards the more like MSU stuff everywhere sort of type builds, and Mandrakes are going to be like amazing in Pariah, all this kind of stuff. So I don't think they're gonna like start shaking up the meta like any more than they already were. I think they're pretty much gonna
I think
fundamentally stay the same.
correct. I mean, they got a Scourge nerf, but they were already playing. Some of those lists were already playing Ravagers. Maybe they drop one small unit and carry on. That army already had 1 billion units, so
Yes. All right, GSC. So this one's like, so I think the red here is as far as I understand it, the red here is in reference to the Codex. So a lot of these things apparently are just bringing them closer back to where they were in the MFM. But
it's really hard when you look at a post-Codex data slate. You see red, you see green. That may just be returning it to the norm of what the last data slate was, because they might be this is them correcting the Codex points, which could be bringing them more in line with the last data slate.
I think though, as we said, GSC got a pretty rough Codex, and I think it's fair to say, unless there's something that we're missing, they're probably the worst army in the game right now.
I mean, Aberrant's got a straight nerf, and their points pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah.
And it was a significant nerf. Like, they are much less durable. Getting box locked, I don't think these points make up for that at all. Like, where is their Hellmorph, Jackal? I believe it's their Acolyte hybrids. Is the Acolyte hybrids is the ones that were throwing bombs at you and sending you into the sun?
It was that Metamorphs?
I think it was Acolyte hybrids.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it was Acolytes. Yeah.
I think they were 170 points, but they lost half of their damage output and dropped to 140 points.
Yeah.
So your unit is 50% worse with not 50% point discount, and that seems to be the recurring theme across this entire points drop, increase, whatever, is your stuff got worse and it did not get the associated point drop with it. Feels bad. I don't really know what to make of the individual attachment stuff. That's going to be up to you guys. But
tough time for GSC, I think, is what it shakes out at. Kind of hate to see it. I like that army.
Grey Knights.
This one's all you.
I mean, this army just frustrates me. The dream of playing 3 Land Raiders with 6 Dread Knights is kind of dead. Land Raider Redeemers got like a 30 or 40 point increase, so that army went up like 200, 250 points, almost completely losing a Dread Knight if you play that list, which is fantastic. I really don't like uppy downy stat check weird lists like that. I really like the push that they're making to put them back towards their infantry. I actually recently just got bodied by all infantry Grey Knights. They did need a little bit of a nerf. I think they've always been good, even from the start of the edition. They're just one of the harder armies to play. Anytime you have uppy downy, your movement has to be on point. And then people realized, hey, what if we just uppy downy big things that people can't kill and stat check our way to a 5-0? Turns out that worked really well for the past few months, so I'm really happy to see that get nerfed.
Fair? Yeah. Still going to be good, but just not as annoying.
Imperial Knights kind of just
ditto what we said about CK, basically.
Chaos Knights.
Yeah.
It's funny as their Lancer is,
which is terrifying. I hate
their Lancer's 10 points more than the Chaos Knight Lancer. Get good.
Oh, what?
our Chaos Knight Lancer was making fun of our Imperial Knight Lancer.
And the Atropos is 5 points more. Get fucked. Our Atropos is 420. Let's go.
They should have outlined in here. What are they called? Your Jaegers. Okay, your Jaegers. All right, pop off. You want to get mad?
All right,
I'll let you get mad.
Fucking hell. Just when I thought I was over the Votan hurdle, here it comes, infiltrating in my face. So Jaegers being 80 points means you're probably going to see like a minimum of 2, if not 3 squads in every Votan list. Infiltrators for a 10-man unit at 80 points.
Auto take.
Probably one of the most busted ass things in the game.
It's probably the best infiltrator in the game.
It's probably the best infantry unit in the game. 80 points for 10 dudes that can literally wall you into your deployment. So 160 points, you don't get to have a first turn movement unless you also have infiltrators. Like, that's what you're doing here.
The part that concerns me the most about Votan is they have a shit ton of scout. They're
Yep.
going to shove all of their bikes and all of their Sagittars straight into your face, and there's nothing you can do about it because 20 little guys in trench coats are going to be standing up and holding their hands up in front of you saying you can't walk past me.
Yeah.
And they're going to get a free turn to alpha strike you, and if you're melee, you can't respond. If you're ranged, they're just going to casino gun your ranged off the table because the bikes scout 9 inches and move 12 inches, and they're going to go where they want and see
I
you
genuinely don't
anyways.
think it's like too much of an exaggeration to say this matchup might have become close to an auto lose for world leaders now.
I don't know if it's that bad,
It's pretty
but
bad.
it definitely hinges on first turn roll a lot more now. Like if they get first turn, that is a bad sign for the game.
If they get first turn, I don't see how you win this game.
We'll see. Maybe we just pray the Votan players can't the kill team gets sold out
I
and they
hope
can't
Kill
get
Team
them
gets
in
sold out
time.
everywhere. Yeah, pretty rough. Pretty rough.
All right, on to Necrons. Not much to talk about. The stupid 18 Wraith triple Doomstalker list went up more points. Yay.
They finally realized that the way to nerf rates was
Is to nerf
not
Wraiths.
to nerf other things, but was to nerf rates. So I'm very glad that GW have like opened their mind to the ability of if you want to make a unit less powerful, increase the points.
No,
So,
at this point,
great.
I think Necrons are a solid
Yep.
upper middle tier army. They're still going to be around. They're still going to do what they do. You're still going to fail the 18 Wraith stat check, or you're going to pass it, and you're still going to win or lose the game based off of that. And they're still going to play 18 Wraiths if they're playing Canoptic Court. At this point, they're just dumping their trash that was scoring them extra points, and they're still just going to out stat check you on objectives unless you just pass the stat check.
Sounds good.
No other changes. It's kind of disappointing. I was hoping they would try to encourage internal balance, maybe hit Wraiths harder and bring Warriors down to encourage more battle line getting played.
Yeah.
But that's not what we got. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you want to get angry again?
Yeah. Take that, Orcs. You got more expensive. Net Mega Knobs are 10 points more per model. Hell
It's a
yeah.
25% increase. I'm
Hell
here for
yeah.
that.
I am
Weird Boy
so
went up.
happy. Weird Boy went up. Pain Boy went up. Pain Boss went up. War Boss didn't go up. Still sad. That's still wild.
60. We were talking about it. It's like he gets like I don't know how it's an egregious amount. It's like 7 or 9
He's
power
like
fist
3
attacks
turns
hitting on
strapped
twos.
together
Yeah.
worth of like damage output.
For 65 points and being just +1 to hit on other power fists is nuts. That model being 65 points shocks me, but I'm not going to complain. Orcs got hit pretty hard on the slate,
Yeah.
specifically the more toxic lists. So we'll see.
Oh, fucking hell. Aiden's still lurking. He said he bought 20 of those fucking Votan infiltrators just for me. I would genuinely, if I paired Aiden and he was playing Votan in a UKTC event, I would genuinely just drop because, like,
I think you won't have a friend by the end of the event.
Yeah, yep, that's a fact. All right, great to see Orcs getting more nerfs. Marines, look, the Iron Storm stuff went up in points. We're not going to spend too long talking about it. Iron Storm kicked in the nuts. Are
Redeemers,
we happy? Yes.
kicked in the nuts everywhere too. Everybody's Redeemers got worse.
Yep.
Where's the World Leader Redeemer? Give it.
Yeah, we'll still take the offshoots. Yeah, Storm Raven 280 points. Just make it 400. Just make sure that it's like out of the game.
Yeah. Flyers should never be good. They kind of adopted that motto at the beginning of this edition. Every time Flyers are good in an edition, it is almost always in a very toxic application.
Yeah.
The Storm Raven application was one of those toxic ones just because of how it abused terrain rules. It would fit its base entirely within the terrain, and then the tip of its wing or Melta would be sticking out. You wouldn't be able to charge it because of how tall it was. You can really only charge its wings. So the tip of it is higher than 5 inches, I think. Somebody just got banned over that at a tournament because they raised the wings above 5 inches. But it just allowed for a lot of squirrely, toxic gameplay. I want them to figure out how to make aircraft work without making them broken. But honestly, if the Helldrake was good, we'd probably see World Leader players playing 3 and movement blocking with them because that would be what we'd do. And
Yeah,
then
let's
we'd
be
have
real.
them swiftly taken away and never get them again, which is probably why they're in the hell that they're in, of never being good. And I think if you're going to treat all planes as if they're bad, all planes should be bad.
Yep. Cool. Wolves. We talked a lot about
10,
wolves. Cavalry up.
10-point increase,
Yeah,
10-point increase.
it's
They
fine.
got
They're
side
gonna be
graded. If
good. They're gonna be real
if
good.
you're playing Stormlance Wolves, you got worse. If you're playing Champions of Russ, I don't really know. Maybe you're better. I mean,
We'll
you're
find
definitely
out.
better than you were, but
Yeah. Tau got lots of decreases. Worrying. Genuinely worrying. Breaches didn't go up in points, which like makes me pretty salty because they're like ranged berserkers, but half the cost. So that's annoying. Basically all the suits dropped in points here. So broadsides, all the various crisis suits, and the commanders went down. The Hammerhead did go up in points. Kind of wild that it like is now 145, and I'm like, oh yeah, it didn't start at that point level for a gun that potentially one shots Angron. Yeah, still
and has Dev
probably.
too, right? Has Dev, right?
Yes, it
Pretty sure
has
the
Dev.
railguns
I
have
think.
Dev.
I think it does. Yeah, like Tau are probably still very fine. I guess Retaliation Cadre has more play now that the Crisis suits have dropped in points. I think Shadow Sun, did she drop in points as well? Commander Shadow Sun, is she? Oh no, she stayed the same. Okay, fair enough.
Nobody was really playing the battle suits already. So like seeing all these changes, it's not like Tau is getting better. They're just trying to encourage list diversity at this point.
Yeah, they are. But the way you encourage list diversity is by upping the points in breachers so that not every single Tau list in the world, regardless of detachment, runs 30. But they didn't do that. So we're functionally probably not really going to see a change to Tau. Maybe the retaliation cadre players, of which there's not many, will have a little bit of a better time around the place. But like your Monska and your Camion, which are the two most popular detachments, those armies are going to look exactly the same as before. They're still going to be a very tough matchup for world leaders. You're still going to have to be very careful, very cagey, and very patient. It's going to be
And
challenging.
another instance of really good balancing. I think. Wait, no. Broadsides are getting punished for being 3-man squads. Um,
I like the comment
300.
from your name here saying friends don't let friends play Tau. I actually genuinely like enjoy the Tau matchup now. I think it's like quite fun. There's a lot of play for world leaders in it, but it's still quite challenging. And breachers are still incredibly efficient for like 100 points for a unit that can pump out 30 shots at strength 5
Oh,
AP1.
they'll thank God they don't have Tetras anymore. Because when they had Tetras, they would pick up 6. They would put a huge dent in Exalted 8-pound, and they would pick up 10 Berserkers plus Mo, no problem.
I mean, they do. Anyway, with a Fireblade, they're
Well, I
picking
meant
up
no
10,
problem. Like
10
it was easy before. Now it's just average. That they get you.
I think it's still pretty
Thousand
easy,
Suns.
but yeah.
Fun fact: this is the first thing the first thing every player does when they see a new data slate is they run to see the points because they want to see their models go up and down. I scrolled all the way to the bottom to see world leaders to see what changed. I went past Thousand Suns and almost spit my coffee out because this is the first thing I saw, and I did not see that the other part that they got thrown down the stairs. And at first, I was about to like probably make a really angry anonymous Reddit post. But then I calmed down like 2 minutes later after I saw that everything was fine and Thousand Suns are actually on fire. Vortex Beast going down in points is like the only good thing they're getting out of this.
Okay, no,
Like
for real,
cherry on
Vortex
top.
Beast at 150? Dude, that's like a pretty good price point for that unit. I think that's like very kind of scary, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, so I think we talked
wait,
about how like
how much was the Hammerhead again? It was like 145.
yeah, 145,
This
and
is
this thing
like the
has
organic Hammerhead, right? Like, but with
with an
different
invuln,
profiles.
feel no pain, decent in melee,
Yeah,
mortal wounds, battle. It has so much shit going on with it.
yeah,
Um, kind of my comments here is seeing Scarab Cult Terminators go down, seeing the Vortex Beast go down. They're encouraging those units that Thousand Suns would normally be frontlining with, which kind of goes along with their changes.
yeah.
So that like if you want to be casting all of your spells, you actually have to be in the middle of the board. And now that you're in the middle of the board, here's your more durable units that you're getting rewarded for playing. Probably not enough to make up for them getting kicked in the groin, but it's nice. Honestly, this whole army needs to be reworked. I really hate how Thousand Suns work currently. The shackle they have to Magnus and to Cabal points, and only really getting 800 points of their list to actually tailor and build
Yeah.
versus like world leaders complain about Engron being an auto include, but at
T-Suns
least
is
that's one
even
model.
worse. Yeah.
Two Suns is like you need
I have a
1200
gut
points to be the
feeling that
same.
their Codex is very close. So we'll wait and
Could
see.
be.
Yeah, feel like it is.
Tyrannids,
Nids?
Biovore gets cheap because Biovore is doesn't really have a role anymore. He's a little
Yeah,
confused in life.
he is. He's having a tough time. However, Rippers did that funny thing where one goes up, but three go down. Like functionally, we kind of talked about Nids. I don't think the points are like too important here. The important thing is like the data sheet and ability changes. I think we're going to see a lot more Nids. I think we're going to see people experimenting with them and having a good time, which is really cool. Um, all right, world leaders. Finally, we got there, people. Let's talk about the good shit. All variants of 8 band, exalted, and regular dropped 5 points per unit, or 10 if you're running the big squads.
Woo.
Holy guacamole, it actually happened. I think it was Seabaker M earlier this week said he had a dream that 8 bound and exalted 8 bound went down 5 points each. And his dream came true. It's amazing. He like manifested something into reality. Like I'm here for it. This is
And
really good. Like really, really good for us, I think.
I
What do you
was
think,
talking
Brian?
to Dara. I was talking to Dara about this. Like the list that I ran at the peak of, I'd say, the last time world leaders were on top and the highest that we've been was when Glaive was still around. We just got our first point cut from the initial data slate. Favorite of Khorne was still around. I was at a GT, and I submitted a list. Now I am going to submit that exact same list in 2 weeks for this next upcoming GT. So our points pretty much returned to where they were when we were already one of the top armies in the game. The only difference is now we no longer have Favorite of Khorne and we don't have Glaive. Yes, 8 bound are still more expensive than they were in the past, but that kind of balances out by Berserkers being way cheaper and Jackals also being cheaper, balancing out our characters getting a point hike. I would still like to see Karn and Mo come down just a little bit. Um, I It really hurts me that Glaive is a 25 point enhancement. It's really good, but it is much worse than it was, and I didn't get to see anything.
Yeah.
I feel like Helm is pretty good. Favored definitely needs to drop a bit. Um, because Favored is like fringe seeing play at this point. Like Ryan
Battle
Bell
should
is still
also drop now
championing
that
it.
heroic is only 1 CP. Like
That is true.
it
Like,
has like
oops, all
essentially lost value.
yeah. Now you're just like you feel like a really bad captain, right? Now that all stratagems are like essentially free again.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, hey, this one stratagem's free for you over here, just this
Mm.
specific one.
Yeah, just that one.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's worth spending 15 points for 1 CP. Probably is if you got the points left over. From my list building so far, I've had a lot of common situations where I've been at 1980, 1985, and that's a number I'm okay with being at. And if you're already running a Mo, now you
Yeah.
have a choice between Favorite of Khorne or Battle Lust. I think Favorite of Khorne has more of an argument now because Battle Lust also no longer requires you to have a CP mortgage taken out.
Correct. I think this is probably actually the right price point for 8 band and exalted in their current form and in this current index. This actually feels like the vast majority of the index, looking at it right here, is like at the correct points, in my opinion. Um, 8 bounds being like in that kind of same region as like your Mauler Fiends, not so far off things like a Predator or a Forge Fiend as well, means that there's like actual choice there and stuff now, which is really good. Exalted at 155 means like you don't literally feel like a clench in your gut every time one of them dies. Now it's just like kind of like a tickle in the gut. Um, but it frees up a lot of points. Well, it doesn't free up a lot of points. What it does is it means that a lot of World Leader players who are finding themselves 5 or 10 points over now have the points to run the list that they want to run. Um, I think it's also particularly good for non-ground lists, which were typically using more of these two units than a round-based list. So that's good too. And yeah, I mean, like functionally, for me, what it equated to was basically getting an extra squad of scoring in both of my
I
non-ground lists. So
I do agree here, Rin. I think our Lane Raider actually probably could have gone down to like 220. I also do think that the Demon Princes are still overpriced by, I'd say, 30 points um, on both. I'd like to see them both drop significantly to be more in line with the other Demon Princes, except for Death Cards. Death Cards, Demon Princes can stay bad.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, Don. They did say that with so Hornimo has the battle lust thing where he can do it twice. Basically, it still says that. Bum. Yeah, so that one is you're able to do it. So, which is actually kind of a good reason to take Hornimo in the sense of like you can basically, choose like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like do an extra heroic for 1 CP. Now that's actually like more of a concern, but Yeah, how
When
are
you're
you feeling about
heroicing,
world leaders right now? Basically, is
when
what I'm wondering.
when you're heroicing twice, it kind of loses its value. Yeah, you're starting another engagement, but having two instances of fights first is
Have you considered
your fights first is
heroicing with a rhino though to just like bomb into something and absorb attacks? Because like that's what I
that
would be
yeah,
using it for.
there's going to be a lot of cool things coming up. Also worth mentioning here that rhinos just got way better from the tank shock change. Basically, anything that was tank shocking already got worse, and anything that was like doing it as a meme is actually no longer a meme. I've been in games where I've tank shocked Eldar with a rhino before because like screw tiny little warp spiders eat like treads. Now you actually have a chance to pick most of that squad up. Um, so I think we're in a decent spot. I'm really excited with the meta. Thousand Suns were a predator for us. Grey Knights were a predator for us. Orcs were a really hard matchup to play correctly. I don't think they were necessarily a bad matchup for us, but they were definitely a very challenging
Oh,
one to
they were
play
a tough
right.
matchup, I think.
They were tough, but not
Yeah.
bad, is how I'd say it.
But the meta is shaking out like real good for us right now, right? You know, it's
And
like,
sure, I want Custodies to do better because I think they're really vulnerable under World Leaders. I
yeah,
really am praying for the Custody players to get out there and play
come
their
on,
armies more
boys, you can
because
do it. You can do it.
Same thing with the Space Wolf players. Get out there and play Champion of Rust. I want more
Yeah.
melee armies in the middle of the board so I can win more because World Leaders are best at melee.
I think that like a lot of this is like we're seeing a lot of like melee stuff get buffed here in a Pariah Nexus mission pack, which is already kind of like quite good for melee in general. So I think, are we actually finally going into like hot melee summer? I think we might be, and I'm like, oh my god, is this like the first time in 40k where it's like melee actually maybe beats the gun? You know, maybe melee better than gun. I know
No,
you're
you're
not. You're right.
coping. You're
You're right.
coping. You're
I'm
coping.
coping. I'm
No,
coping.
no.
It's not true.
I think
It's just
I
not
think
true.
melee is actually just no longer being neglected. I think we're
Yeah.
still I think melee is still critically undervalued, but I think it is no longer being neglected.
Yeah.
Dara and I also typed up a quick like spark notes for some other
Core
changes that we saw
changes.
that we wanted to just talk about. Key things were like free strats obviously changed. We talked about that. Probably one of the other biggest changes in the slate is the pivot, change to pivot.
Pivot.
If you have a
This is
circular
pretty funny.
base, you get to spin to your heart's content. Spin your model around, make it look like whatever you want, no longer cost movement. That's really nice because with a model like Engron, who is a walking like rectangle almost, even though he's on a circular base, sometimes people try to shoot the tip of your sword, and usually I look at the person and just turn Engron anyways and say, "Nuh-uh." So now you can actually just do that without getting punished for it. That was always really annoying. I want them to go back to the old ninth edition way of doing that, which is like the cone from the base up you can shoot. But I get it. It's really hard to enforce that and starts arguments. The only thing is if you are rotating something that is not a circle, flat 2-inch penalty, and then you can rotate to your heart's content. So the Lord of Skulls can like do the drift of hell and spin 2 inches, even though he turned like
Yeah.
12, like a whole foot.
You
Same
know
thing with
where
your Land
that's really
Raiders.
good is in Soulforge pack for CSM when he's like breaching through the wall and he's just like spinning through, coming through the bit like, excuse
Just
me.
actually Tokyo drifting for 2 inches now through a wall,
Yeah.
which is really nice. I think
I'm
that's
happy
awesome.
for the Kalos. Yeah, happy for him.
Tank shock change. Talked about that
We
already.
talked about
It's
that
now
one. Yeah, yeah.
it's toughness based. Grenades. You can no longer grenades when you advance or if you fall back, which was nice. I actually abused the hell out of that. I was almost always advancing Vokatis up the board, and they're like, "Why are you advancing? You don't have advancing charge." And then I grenades, and they're like, "Surprised." So same
Now we
thing with
can't
like,
do it. Yeah,
yeah, can't do that anymore. Which whatever. I don't think that
whatever. Yeah,
it was fringe when it came up.
yeah.
We have the heroic change we talked about.
So one CP
We have
heroic. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if we really necessarily like dive super deep into it. I feel like we mentioned it, but like this is really big for us. Like in a meta where there is going to be a lot more melee, and we have a big fights first squad that can heroic into combat and just like dogpile on you. And I feel like I'm going to say this for like the millionth time, but when you heroic with world leaders, you do get your +1 strength and attack from the detachment rule. If you got Mo in there, you do fight first. One common thing that I've actually seen a lot of people like just getting wrong recently. Do remember that you can only heroic if an enemy unit charges near you. Like you can't do the ninth edition like I'm just going to heroic because you're near me. Like that is not a thing in
it,
heroic intervention anymore.
it's crazy how many times that's come up even
Like so
now.
many
It
people are
actually
just
came up
like I
recently.
can do that, and I'm like no, no, you cannot. Like you can't
Go
just
back.
walk in. Not a thing. Not a
Um,
thing.
Do you want to talk about the mortal wound change as well?
Yeah, okay. So this one is like kind of like functionally and non-change in many ways. Basically, um, dev wounds now count as mortal wounds, but don't spill over. So what this means is that anytime you've got something that gives you a feel no pain against mortal wounds, you now have it against dev wounds. I think this also applies for hazardous. So on the off chance that your berserkers overcharge and fail the hazardous roll, and you roll two sixes, one of them will not blow himself up. So that's kind of cute, but not really that relevant.
No, you still automatically die if you're infantry and you fail your
Hazardous
hazards,
just
you just
does
blow
three
up.
mortals now.
Oh, they did change it to
Yeah,
just three
it's just
mortals?
flat three mortals.
Well,
So
that's cute.
yeah, sure, I guess it's not really relevant. It just means that like armies like custodes will have defense against dev wounds in certain detachments.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, heroic is probably the biggest change there, right?
Yep. We still got a couple more in here.
Cool, go for it.
We got they changed how blood surge style rules work. Um, I've actually been in quite a few situations where you might actually consider not blood surging, when given the option to, due to opening yourself up to more firing angles, right? You could be behind a ruin, something shoots you in your back. Now you have the option to blood surge through the ruin and maybe tag something outside of the ruin. Now you can have an argument. It's like if I need a 5 to make that blood surge, but you fail it, do you have to move that full distance forward? And now you're out in the open and getting punished for making that die roll. Now you can move up to that distance. They clarified you still have to move as close as possible up to that distance. So if you want to move up to the wall of the ruin instead, you can do that. You can roll the die and just completely opt not to move at all, which is a nice change. Um, I've actually found myself in that situation very frequently if you're like setting up weird behind the wall blood surge plays. So just keep an eye out for that. That's something you can take advantage of now. And then the final change we have written in our notes, I'm sure there's half a dozen more guys, so feel free to leave them in the comments after this. Feel free to hit us up in the Discord if we missed anything else. There was a big change to fast rolling as well.
Oh yeah,
Now
this was pretty
they,
relevant for anyone playing like WTC style Warhammer.
which was really obnoxious to play in.
Yeah, this was pretty.
Like you have to hold a die in your hand and you have to sit there and slow roll 20 saves one at a time because maybe save number 16 will be relevant. But if you want to take that, Dara,
Yeah, now you just dump all your dice on the table and say, I'm gonna re-roll that one. Which is cool. It's just is what it is. Will WTC FAQ it to say that you still have to do it their way? I would say probably. Like they might just decide that they're gonna keep doing that. And yeah, there's been a ton of other changes. A lot of it was kind of like it feels like all the commonly asked questions that go to like TOs of different tournaments were like compiled into this document. It's 33 pages long. We're obviously not going to go through it all. About 10 of those pages are different diagrams explaining pivoting, which I'm here for it. That's quite funny. But yeah, like they really clarified the big guns never tired. They clarified a lot of like out of phase, out of sequence stuff. They clarified um, if you've got the blessings and they've got the wog, how you decide which one goes first. All this kind of stuff. So overall, very very clear in terms of the answering. And then we got the Pariah Nexus tournament companion pack, which is basically where you draw your missions and all the other stuff from. We're not going to talk about it in this stream. We're going to do a separate video on that because there's a lot to dive into there as well. But it's a really cool pack. So look forward to that maybe at some point next week or the week after. We will be dissecting that. But yeah, so that was kind of the bulk of it. So, sorry, go on, Brian.
I do want to say I also had one more comment before we get too much further. All right, we're about to wrap up. I will like vent a little point of frustration surrounding this entire data slate as it's become very apparent. WTC is right around the corner. We're about to have a massive tournament where all of the best teams from around the world are coming together to fight off for who's the best, like national pride, country, team, whatever you want to root for them, go for it. I'll definitely be rooting for my team still. I am annoyed that it is very apparent that a lot of these rules and data slate changes came out and were given to some of these players and teams and content creators way before some of the other ones. There will be some teams that are going to be attending this event that will not have seen this stuff until today. And there are some teams that are looking at this stuff that have obviously had it for a little while. So
Yeah,
yes,
like
I'm a
there's
little
gonna be some
annoyed by
teams
that.
that have been playing on Pariah with this balanced data slate for like a month and a half, which is like not great, to be honest. Um,
I'm a little annoyed by that. I would really like GW to try to address that in some way.
yeah,
It seems like gotten a little backdoory with it, but I won't rant too much.
I just think it's
I
like it's
just
sort of compromising the competitive integrity of the game at a very high level. Obviously, it doesn't affect mid players. It doesn't affect like the majority of people. But I think we like touched on it with the CSM point changes, where I was like, this feels targeted, like super targeted. You know, like certain people are playing other certain people, and we're like, okay, actually, we have to go after this. So you know, it's just it's not really like fully adding up to me, and I'm not really a crazy big fan of certain groups getting things ahead of time. Like we don't necessarily know how ahead of time they got it. Like, you know, we'll say some people might have gotten Pariah like a week ago, or some people might have gotten it like 3 weeks ago, or maybe longer. Um, we started hearing rumors about the Sisters Codex like quite early this year, and like those rumors ended up being true. So some people had that book for like months, which isn't great to be honest. Like I would like to see the kind of competitive integrity of the game stabilize a little bit better, and I think that's on GW. Like, it's not really on these teams to be like, no, we're not going to playtest for you. Like, they obviously
and I know
are,
it's
right?
hard because obviously you want your content creators to have access to this stuff so they can start making content earlier.
Yeah,
But it doesn't help when those content creators are also the same people playing in those teams.
yeah. It's I don't know.
Which,
It's like a bit
which
of a
is a
pain
pickle for
point,
them to
but
solve. Just a small little gripe.
yeah.
I don't know if I prefer this stuff getting revealed a little bit earlier in waves, kind of like they do with spoilers and rumors and stuff. I don't know if that's the way to do it. Um, and then
Yeah.
just have like this is the official date, but here's everything in advance, just so people have time to plan around it before it actually changes, rather than just dropping it all at once
I just
and
think
hiding
people
it
should be like
from.
pretty upfront as well about being like, yes, we have these rules. We can't talk about them. We have them. We are working with them. Rather than like being like, oh, we don't have them, but then they do. Like that actually does kind of bug me. Where I'm just like, just say it, bro. Like I don't care, you know. Like we would say if we were playtesting or if we were like, you know, had advanced knowledge, we wouldn't give you the knowledge because we'd be under NDAs. But we would just be like, yes, we have that knowledge. We don't have that knowledge. Like we're those content creators who don't have stuff, which doesn't always feel amazing. But regardless, it is what it is. So moving on though, like how are you feeling about this balanced data set? Because it's obviously huge, and we're getting it alongside Pariah. Um, how do you feel about like this? How they've put this together? Because personally, I think GW have actually done a really fucking good job with this. They have addressed an awful lot of like the 1,000,001 FAQs in here is like
Yep.
literally everything that's
Yep.
always asked at tournaments, which I'm like, oh, amazing. The balances are really good. They like went after armies in the correct way. They buffed armies in the correct way. I'm actually just like, there's nothing in here apart from the CSM points, which I'm like, that feels wrong. That's the only thing that I would say feels incorrect in here. But what do you think?
I'm inclined to agree. That'll shake out with time. Obviously, we're basically in 10th and a half edition right now. A lot of the missions they gave us could be busted. They could be just as bad as Servo Skulls. Probably not. From what I've read, my initial impressions is they're all actually quite fun and fair and balanced, and even the mission rules feel thematic. And they're not as necessarily like railroady or just you don't want to play with that. Um, the mission pack I haven't gotten a chance to look at. I'm assuming they've made some really good combinations. I'm actually a huge fan of the GW mission pack. I encourage a lot of like, if you're a TO, really give that just a look for guidance because
Look
I
deeply at prepared positions and put it on
I
every single mission, and it will be fine. Don't stress about
I,
it.
I didn't look at UKTC at all. I did help a couple people with a little bit of coaching for how to play on UKTC, but I have played on WTC. I have played on just the normal ITC, and I played on a couple other formats. And I can say safely that GW's really felt the best out of all of them. So if you're a TO looking for guidance, look at that pack. It's probably good. We'll be giving it a read, probably putting some content out here soon. I think they did a great job. Everything they seem to have fixed a lot of the really apparent problems, and there may be some growing pains
Yeah.
for just a new rule set, but I mean, Leviathan got stale, and I'm really happy to see something new.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, we were talking about it during the week, Reddit. You were kind of saying, like, I don't think this balanced data set is going to be big. And I just had this, like, gut feeling. I was like, this boy is going to shake things up. And it really has. I'm hype. I'm like very, very hype on this. I mean, this is obviously has been our initial takes and kind of like hot reactions. what we are going to do is do a much more focused like review on what this means for the world leaders. That is probably going to drop at some point early next week. We are probably going to redo our faction matchup tier list. We're going to have a companion pack review as well. You'll have that GT, so you can bring us kind of like first-hand knowledge of like boots on the ground sort of stuff. And yeah, we're gonna have a ton of stuff talking about this. I'm gonna review this from the lens of non-Gron, and you'll review it from the lens of Ron, and we'll kind of see where we get to with everything. But before we close this one out, we'll do a quick Q&A for anyone who wants to ask us some questions or has any inquiries or anything like that. But yeah, so we'll give that a moment. I just think this is like good. I think we're moving into like a very fun, honestly, potentially quite balanced state of 40k, pending how ADME are, and because honestly, who knows, and pending how Sisters are going to be. But like, nothing really in the meta right now, apart from maybe Sisters, has me being like, oh yeah, I'm super worried about that army. I think like for world leaders, everything is like more or less beatable in here, which is real good. Our biggest predators got nerfed in a big way. And armies which maybe we were preying on got buffed, like Tyranids. So we'll have to see how that one shakes out and if they gain like anything meaningful from it. But yeah, I just think it's gonna be pretty wild. So yeah, Mark says not sure what the poop is on prepared positions, but it's only in 2 of the 20 suggested GW missions. Prepared positions is the one which gives you free heroic and go to ground, which is very good for world leaders. Rin says, despite every army I've been playing with currently being shifted in ways I personally don't like, the game changes and commentaries in the mission pack is spectacular and beautiful. Yeah, I think actually like the fact that they put an awful lot of effort into like structuring a well-written and well-executed like FAQ and errata for various different things. And just like actually honestly putting a conscious effort into like I feel like this is like the most effort they've put into a balance like since I've started playing this game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, by a mile.
Yeah. So honestly, probably shout out to Josh Roberts because I feel like a lot of that is like, his influence there. So I think he's probably actually done an awful lot of good work for this one. Like there's a lot of changes here which show increased levels of like insight into how the game is actually being played at a competitive level. And that man goes to tournaments like every single week. So I can only imagine that he's getting it from there rather than like, Robin Cordace like hammering the boys in the GW studio every week with his sisters. So it's really nice to see like that actual real world feedback is kind of making a difference. Josh says his demons are wild now. Yes, I'm aware. I really hope I don't play you at Leeds, Josh. What do you think about demons, Brian? You think they're going to be like jumped up like really crazy good now? You think they're going to be an army to watch for us?
I really don't know because the argument has to be made whether or not the current iteration of demons, which does not really benefit, I feel like doesn't benefit that much from these buffs, if that current iteration will stick around or if it'll be beaten out by now this like push for greater demons, put like more of a pull for greater demons showing up and just dropping stuff in your face up. Like Bellacore still does that, but most of the lists have been designed around to having that one of once per turn deep strike like bomb in your face with a bunch of shooty guys in the back to support it. Now it could be everywhere. Now you're just getting bombed everywhere. So I don't know. I think it will require a lot of list rewrites for demons, and I think it's all good.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think we're about there. Wow, that's been a hell of a stream. We've been going for what, like 2 hours? Actually, feels like longer, but still pretty good. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for hopping in and hanging out, checking out the show, leaving us some support. If you are not already, do drop us a follow, do drop us a like, make sure you like the stream, all that good stuff. If you want to support us even further, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where you can get access to our Patreon competitive Discord or hobby Discord, depending on what your preferences are. You can poke me and Brian about your weird Ron or non-Gron list ideas. You can also super chat us on YouTube when we're live, or a variety of other ways. Check out all the links down below if you would like to show that support. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been an awesome balanced data slate, like really, really awesome. 8 stars out of 8 from me. For now, you've been watching The Red Path. I've been Dara. This has been Brian. So until the next one, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.